feel like I missed a lot.
Oh yeah. And you know what's interesting? One of the staunchest Republicans I've ever met in my life, the one New York like finance guy I ever dated, like it was his uncle and he worked for,
You hear
the
that, Finance
FBI.
Bros?
Yeah.
She's
The
got a
one
soft
finance
spot.
pro I ever did. Yeah, I do. See, and his uncle worked, the FBI, but also was just in, different things. Anyways, he was a lawyer. He was a staunch Republican, as most of them are. And if one time I asked him, like, where do you get your news? And I swear, he said Rachel Maddow, and I was like, what? Because this was a Republican. He's like, listen,
Yeah.
she's an incredible journalist. He's like, I know how. He's like, I know I'm intelligent. I know good journalism when I see it. He's like, I can then make my own determination about what is right, wrong. But like as far as facts, Rachel Maddow. It's like
I like that he
okay.
views it as like an art form. Like we can both appreciate other musics that we or music genres
Yeah.
that we don't really listen to. We can be like, oh, that's really good. He just does that with Rachel Maddow. He's like, I really respect the art of this. I hate what you're saying. I love the art. That's
Yeah. Know thy
kind of a
enemy,
deep
Sun
Republican you
Tzu.
dated.
Well, that was his uncle, the FBI one.
Oh,
That was his uncle. Yeah, he
oh, I
was
missed
just a
that part. I
finance
missed
bro.
that part. I thought
And
the
a
uncle and the
professional
guy.
and like a professional poker player. I mean, probably not a you know the type.
Yeah,
Anyway,
loud as a
okay.
motorbike, but wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight.
Get excited to learn like all the questions you have, like all the stuff that you hear Republicans saying. Why wasn't the hush money trial brought sooner? Like we're about to learn about all of it.
Let's just jump right in, okay?
Let's do.
Because here's the thing that everybody who hasn't been paying a lot of attention to this is probably thinking today.
Can we get a little more volume, please?
Presidential campaign right before the 2016 election. What the Wall Street Journal reported in that.
Isn't that interesting? It was Rupert Murdoch that broke
Yeah,
his story
yeah.
about Trump. That is very
Oh, he
interesting
wanted that.
because you could
Yeah,
he
Murdoch
takes the
hated
jabs
him.
all the yeah. Rupert
Yeah,
Murdoch every chance he gets, he's still a Republican and understands, okay, it's better to have Trump than say a
yeah. He still doesn't want
Democrat,
to pay
but
taxes. Yeah,
yeah, he still doesn't want to pay taxes, but very clearly does not like Trump.
January 2018 story is that the woman on the right here, a porn director and porn actor named Stormy Daniels, right before the 2016 campaign, she had been paid $130,000 to not talk about what she says was a sexual encounter with Donald Trump. And, the alleged adulterous sexual encounter is one thing. Trump, for his part, denied that it ever happened and still denies that it ever happened. But sex is one thing, money is another thing. This was a presidential campaign. And if she got $130,000, if that money was spent for the purpose of the campaign to help Trump get elected, well, there's rules about that, right? There's criminal laws that apply to that kind of spending. And when that story broke in the Wall Street Journal, Michael Cohen denied that when that payment went to Stormy Daniels, that Donald Trump or his campaign or his company had anything to do with the payment. Michael Cohen, when that story came out, he said that he personally had paid Stormy Daniels with his own money out of the goodness of his own heart. No, he didn't have sex with Stormy Daniels. It wasn't anything to do with that. He just paid Stormy
But then when
So just know, guys, when you're calling Cohen a liar, this is why he was lying for Orange Jesus, for the man that you love so much.
Yeah, I didn't know who she was, and then I saw her during the 16 campaign. I was like, oh wait, I've seen her in 40-Year-Old Virgin, and that's the only reason I knew who that was.
I wish that was true of me, but
you knew you were a big
totally
fan before
legal.
that.
Nothing to see.
no, like it's
Is
a
that your
long
type?
weird story, but I told you this. I got backstage passes to the AVN Awards, like
Of course,
like
of course.
yeah. That's how I.
You want to share that, or?
And it was like one of the years she like won a bunch of awards. Let's put it that way.
All right. Well, I didn't know she was such a decorated actress.
Oh.
Nevertheless,
Not just an actress, but a director. Yeah, she's a very successful in the industry. Yes.
I didn't know.
Like she's not just anyone. Like I think that's why Trump wanted to meet her because she's famous. Yeah.
Well, these are all things I didn't know. I'm really happy.
Okay. See, we're learning. Yeah. Now you know.
Thanks,
She's
Rachel.
very successful in the industry. Yeah.
Beauty of Rachel Maddow. She'll teach you even when she doesn't mean to.
The FBI decided there was something to see. They persuaded a judge that there was something to see as well. They got a court-ordered search warrant to search Michael Cohen's office. And they seized business records and emails and documents. And then Michael Cohen was told he was going to be charged with federal crimes. And then Michael Cohen struck a plea deal with federal prosecutors, with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York. Cohen pled guilty to campaign finance violations and other charges. He admitted that he had arranged this payment to Ms. Daniels and also to another woman who says that she had a 9-month-long affair with Trump. He says he arranged these payments. He coordinated to make sure these women would get paid, to stay quiet about their allegations of infidelity in order to help Trump's presidential campaign. Now, when Michael Cohen pled guilty, President Trump responded by calling him.
And remember, he was with the McDougal Playboy Bunny when Melania was pregnant.
Damn it! Was it Karen McDougal? I thought it was Stormy. Damn it! I messed that up on my TikTok video this morning.
Yeah, well, don't worry. Rachel will teach us that.
All right.
That's nice. When Michael Cohen pled guilty, he admitted in federal court that he hadn't paid out this hush money of his own accord, on his own initiative, out of the goodness of his heart. Michael Cohen admitted in court filings, he swore in person in federal court, the commission of the crimes he was pleading guilty to. He acted in coordination with and at the direction of individual one, aka Donald Trump.
Oh yeah, this stuff is mind-blowing. Like, Trump got people to take stuff out of the indictment.
And Michael Cohen had receipts to back this up, literal receipts. When he was called to testify before Congress, you may remember he brought with him copies of the checks that were given to him to reimburse him for making the illegal payment. Checks signed, in some cases, by Donald J. Trump. Many of them signed while Trump was in the White House. And it was all an amazing spectacle, right? I mean, other presidents maybe stoop someone or maybe get involved in a campaign finance scandal, but illegal hush money payments to not one but two alleged mistresses with reimbursement checks for one of the illegal payments signed in the White House. I mean, A, gross. B, not your typical presidential scandal. Like, we're already in unprecedented territory here. But that's not actually the most important point. Right? The Michael Cohen federal case revelations. Michael Cohen pleading guilty, coming clean, saying what happened. That left in its wake not just like a slimy trail of yuck, don't let the kids read the news anymore. It left in its wake one legitimately baffling question, which was, wait, now, who's getting in trouble for this now? Who's the one person getting in trouble for this crime? Just Michael Cohen, really? He's going to federal prison for years, and he's the only one? Why is that? Why is he the only one? You know why that was? We now know why that was. And it's really bad. It's one of the worst things we learned about Donald Trump's behavior as president and what he was able to do as president. We tell ourselves all these stories now about, oh, thank God there were adults in the room who said no to him. We should be worried if there won't be adults in the room next time. Right? We tell ourselves all these feel-good stories. Oh, thank goodness the institutions held. And he wasn't able to wreck the American system of government and the American rule of law the way he wanted to. Really? Actually, in some cases, and this is one of them, the so-called adults in the room did exactly what he wanted. And the institutions did not hold. They were corrupted. And there were terrible consequences. And that actually is where this case come from and why it took so long to get to trial today in New York City. Remember, this was a federal case. The Michael Cohen case was a federal case. When Michael Cohen pled guilty, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, the federal prosecutor running the office that was investigating Cohen, that was prosecuting Cohen, that was a U.S. attorney named Jeffrey Berman. Jeffrey Berman's a lifelong Republican. He was appointed to his post at SDNY by President Trump. He'd worked on the Trump campaign and the Trump transition. But after Jeff Berman was fired from the Trump administration, after he was fired as the U.S. attorney in SDNY, he wrote a book about what happened to him in that job. And one of the things he described in detail was about the Michael Cohen case. According to Jeffrey Berman, who was running that U.S. attorney's office,
He looks crazy.
after Michael Cohen pled guilty and was sentenced to 3 years in prison for this crime, President Trump's appointees at the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington, the main justice, they started repeatedly reaching down into Berman's office, into SDNY, to try to make the whole case basically go away. This is from Jeff Berman's book. It's called Holding the Line.
I just bought that book. We should not.
They say
Bill Barr
holding the line?
needs to be held.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, it's yeah. It's all, but yeah, we should not let Bill Barr off the hook for what he's done. I mean, this guy, like, he was on this train all the way up until the very end, and then hopped off, and it's like shows up on
Yeah.
MSNBC to like try to be a hero. It's like this guy, the worst of it, he had his hands in.
He says, quote, while Michael Cohen had pleaded guilty, our office continued to pursue investigations related to other possible campaign finance violations. When Bill Barr took over as Trump's U.S. Attorney General in February 2019, 6 months after Cohen's guilty plea, Barr not only tried to kill the ongoing investigations, but incredibly, he suggested that Michael Cohen's conviction on campaign finance charges should be reversed. Attorney General Barr summoned my deputy, Rod Kuzami, who was overseeing the Cohen case, in late February to challenge the basis of Cohen's guilty plea, as well as the reasoning behind pursuing similar campaign finance charges against other individuals. Mr. Kuzami was told to cease all investigative work on the campaign finance allegations until Maine Justice determined there was a legal basis for the campaign finance charges to which Cohen pled guilty, and until Barr himself determined there was a sufficient federal interest in pursuing charges against others. The directive Attorney General Barr gave Kuzami, which was amplified that same day by a follow-up call from Barr's deputy, was explicit. Not a single investigative step could be taken, not a single document in our possession could be reviewed. And if Maine Justice decided there was no legal basis for the charges, the Attorney General of the United States would direct us to dismiss the campaign finance guilty pleas of Michael Cohen, the man who implicated the Attorney General's boss, the president. Barr's posture here raises obvious questions. Did he think dropping the campaign finance charges would bolster Trump's defense against impeachment charges? Was he trying to ensure that no other Trump associates or employees would be charged with making hush money payments and perhaps flip on the president?
Yeah, this is weaponizing the DOJ.
Yeah.
I know Trump, if you guys want an example of what weaponizing the DOJ is, here it is right here. This is it. It's always funny how whatever Trump's accusing other people of, he seems to be the actual one doing it.
And this is the thing, like, there's so many of these stories. There's so much that, there is so much corruption by the Trump Justice Department, specifically Bill Barr. Like, he did things that we've never seen before, ever, and things that are just like blatantly, obviously, weaponizing the Justice Department. Like, he went with Trump's personal lawyer to Ukraine to dig up dirt on the Bidens. Trump literally sent his Justice Department with his attorney to go dig up dirt on a political opponent. Imagine it Merrick Garland was just like out in Russia with I don't know who Biden's attorney would be, but let's just say it's Dan Goldman, and Dan Goldman they're out there rolling through Russia. You don't think that that Republicans would lose their mind? You don't think that Republicans would be like, this is weaponized? This would be their best argument. Of all their arguments of a weaponized Justice Department, this would be their best one if it was reversed, and they don't even care about it. It's the most obvious example, and they probably don't know, and they don't care.
President, was the goal to ensure that the president could not be charged after leaving office?
Yep.
Was the goal to ensure that the president could not be charged after leaving office? Justice Department rules do say, for better or for worse, that presidents can't be criminally charged while they are serving as president. But if the federal prosecutors had determined that Trump had committed these crimes with Michael Cohen, right? Nothing would stop them from charging Trump for those crimes the moment he was once again a private citizen. And the head of the U.S. Attorney's Office that did this investigation, that brought this case, he says that Trump's guys at the U.S. Justice Department monkeyed with this case. They monkeyed with this investigation on Trump's behalf to make sure SDNY would never and could never determine that Donald Trump committed these federal crimes. This isn't something that, like, we had to worry might happen. This happened. And the whistleblower on this was the guy who was running the U.S. Attorney's Office that got monkeyed with. He was in a position to know.
Can you pause it real quick?
Another revelation from Jeff Berman's book was that when Michael...
My thought when she's talking about how obvious this corruption was, how much they interfered, it kind of makes more sense how dead set some of these people like Donald Trump are that the election was stolen, because look how much stuff they were willing to do. Look how much stuff behind the scenes and ways they were willing to cheat and break the rules. Like, maybe I haven't given Donald Trump enough credit. Maybe after finding out everything that was happening during the Trump presidency, maybe they really thought that their plan was unbeatable. Maybe that's why they're so convinced there was fraud.
I mean, they're not convinced. You mean why they're so confident in lying about it?
Look, I think Trump is the kind of person who tells himself a lie or tells himself the story he wants to believe and honestly believes it. Like, I think he just chooses what he wants to believe. He doesn't seem to care about what, like, I don't think he even examines what facts are. He just, like, has an idea and he's like, that's just the truth.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about it, it's called confabulations, like confabulation, like true narcissistic personality disorder. You're essentially wallpapering over the truth, because the only truth to a malignant narcissist is that they are God. Any other reality oftentimes is incongruent with their deep belief that they're God. And when there's incongruence, they have to wallpaper over whatever the truth is so that they can continue essentially believing that they're God. That's what confabulation is. It's deeper than lying. It's about maintaining like the fun house of mirrors, that you have this like grandiose self that is above everyone else.
Yeah, that fits perfectly.
Might happen. This happened. And the whistleblower on this was the guy who was running the U.S. Attorney's Office that got monkeyed with. He was in a position to know. Another revelation from Jeff Berman's book was that when Michael Cohen pled guilty, Trump's Justice Department made prosecutors at SDNY strip out tons of references to Trump in their court filings.
This is insane.
And so, yeah, the big damning document they ultimately filed contained that key phrase that Cohen acted in coordination with and at the direction of individual one. But Jeff Berman says that the document his office had planned to file was much more explicit about Trump's involvement in Cohen's crimes. What they wanted to say was that Trump acted in concert with and coordinated with Cohen. Apparently, when Trump's Justice Department saw that, they were livid. They made SDNY cut down this court filing from 40 pages to 21 pages, and they made them strip out all the most damning findings about Trump in order to protect Trump from this federal investigation.
That's wild.
When they got done with it, the final document no longer said that Michael Cohen had committed his crime acting in concert with and coordinating with Trump, with individual one. Instead, the final document said Michael Cohen acted in concert with and coordinated with one or more members of the Trump campaign. One or more members of the Trump campaign was Trump. But Justice Department officials in Washington, people appointed by Trump.
This is what I'm saying. I mean, this is you. I never want. This is weaponization of the DOJ. He committed a crime. Michael Cohen went to jail for him, and he had the indictment edited to not include him in more damning ways. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah, imagine if Biden, forget that. Let's imagine if Obama did this.
Yeah. Or literally anybody but Trump. Like, he's such a deity that even, like, Republicans would be upset at most other Republicans for this stuff, unless that particular Republican swore their allegiance to Donald Trump, in which case it would be okay. Like, this only works for Donald Trump. This only works when you've been promoted to deity. This doesn't work for any other candidate. And until you're a deity, this doesn't work.
Made the prosecutor's office take that out. Jeff Berman also says he was ordered by Trump's Justice Department to investigate prominent Democrats at Trump's behest, including John Kerry. Berman says he was told right before the 2018 midterm elections that his office should bring charges against a Democratic lawyer who had been President Obama's White House counsel.
Do you remember
Berman's
this?
office looked into it, decided not to.
Do you remember this?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Trump retaliated and had Obama's White House counsel brought up on. It's crazy.
Remember that.
I remember this, but not why it ended up not in New York and in D.C. I mean, this story, this is weaponization of the DOJ. Trump's just going after political enemies he doesn't like.
Not only had Obama's White House counsel not done anything to warrant being prosecuted, he actually hadn't done anything at all. He was innocent of what he was being accused of here. After Berman refused to bring those charges, Trump's Attorney General Bill Barr then tried to push Berman into resigning. He even put out a late-night press release in June 2020 claiming that Jeff Berman had resigned.
This is insane.
Jeff Berman had not resigned. And he said so. He refused to go. And he did that in part because he had just seen what had happened in another important U.S. Attorney's office after a total takeover there by Trump's Justice Department. It was in the D.C. U.S. Attorney's office that these schemes went even further. Barr, in the D.C. U.S. Attorney's office, had succeeded in ousting the U.S. Attorney there and instead installing his own people. That U.S. Attorney's office in D.C. then immediately moved to drop the charges and undo the guilty plea from Trump National Security Advisor Mike Flynn. They moved to undo the recommended sentence for Trump advisor Roger Stone, who had just been convicted on multiple felonies. This was the same U.S. Attorney's office that also folded to the pressure to bring charges against Obama's White House counsel after Berman refused to do it because there was no case there. That case was so palpably weak, the jury voted to acquit in less than 5 hours. That very rarely happens to federal prosecutors, but it happened there because there was no case.
Remember, because he was mad that he said Obama was spying on him again.
Right.
Not true, but that's what this was all about. And that's because, and they tried to force, like SDNY, the Southern District of New York, one of the most pretty much the most famous federal prosecuting office in the country, and tried to get Jeffrey Berman, who was heading up SDNY, to do it. And he said no. And so Bill Barr took over the DC office so he could get Flynn off, get Roger Stone off,
Manafort.
and go after Obama's White House counsel, who was acquitted in 5 hours because there's no evidence.
Yeah, it's what I was reading about, like, just the timing of that while I was listening, and I don't know why I added. I wanted you to know that I was listening. I think I wanted you to know that. That's why I added that in there. But at this, like, apparently his arrest, which it, maybe why I missed it, it was or the charges were announced on like the same day that Julian Assange was arrested, and so the story was like kind of buried. So I'm reading all these tweets from Trump like. Nobody's reporting the White House officials indicted in connection with the Mueller investigation. This was all an attempt also to smear the Mueller investigation, right? To say that this was part of the Mueller
Exactly.
investigation. Yeah. Thank you.
Because Trump insisted that that prosecution be brought forward. One U.S. attorney's office looked into it and said, "Are you kidding? There's nothing here." But the other one went ahead and did it because that's what Trump demanded, even though there was no case. Jeffrey Berman saw what had happened in the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office, and he did not want to allow the same thing to happen in SDNY. And so Jeffrey Berman fought. Barr puts out this press release saying Berman has resigned. Berman puts out a statement saying, "Oh, no, I haven't." And there was this dramatic 48 hours in which Berman twice refused to quit, refused to let his office be taken over by Trump's attorney general. And then finally, Trump fired Jeffrey Berman. And the victory Berman won in fighting so hard and making so much noise is that after he was fired, he made sure that his deputy, a normal prosecutor, was promoted to take his place instead of Bill Barr just sending Trump guys to take it over like he did in D.C. But this is a very bad black mark on the record of the U.S. Justice Department. And the result of all of this was terrible drama, scary revelations about the Justice Department under President Trump. But it was also, crucially, a federal criminal investigation diverted and delayed and tampered with. The federal criminal investigation into the crimes for which Michael Cohen went to prison was stymied. And here's a key point. It wasn't just the federal criminal investigation, because while all this was going on at the federal level, the investigation into Michael Cohen, the attempted investigation of people beyond Cohen who participated in those same crimes, Trump, the revelation of Trump's personal culpability for these crimes, Trump's Justice Department, while all this was happening, they reached down and put the brakes on the whole thing. Right? A corrupted federal Justice Department acting to protect the president, despite findings of law and fact. While that was happening at the federal level around the Cohen case, it had the effect of stymieing a potential state prosecution as well. Because New York prosecutors in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office were also interested in investigating and potentially prosecuting these crimes that had taken place. After all, these crimes took place in their city. But the feds, right, this was supposedly their case, and they asked state prosecutors to hold off while they pursued their federal case in this matter. What we came to learn, though, is that the federal case wasn't happening. It was delayed and diverted and perverted and ultimately stopped by Trump's appointees at the U.S. Justice Department. And so state prosecutors are twiddling their thumbs, wasting tons of time waiting around for the feds to supposedly finish this investigation, which is an investigation that's not actually happened because of corruption. It was months after Cohen's guilty plea that federal prosecutors quietly signaled in a court filing that the investigation was over and nobody besides Michael Cohen would be federally charged. It was literally 2 weeks later, 2 weeks after that quiet admission from the feds, that state prosecutors started issuing subpoenas for their own investigation. So if you find yourself wondering why alleged crimes that happened in 2016 are only coming to trial now, well, one of the reasons is that Donald Trump's Justice Department succeeded in delaying and ultimately stymieing the federal investigation into the alleged crimes for which Donald Trump is now effectively facing a New York State trial. And in fact, that successful effort by Trump's Justice Department to forestall any federal investigation into Trump or any charges against him, we can see the legacy of that successful corruption, of the case. We can see the legacy of it in the way the Manhattan District Attorney has had to charge this case. Because one of the big awkward parts of this case that's now being tried in New York is that there's a crime that's being described here that's never actually been charged. Right? People who criticize this case That is often one of the major issues they will take of it. A crime is being described here, but if that crime is such a crime, how come it was never charged? Right? The New York DA's case against Donald Trump says these false business records Trump created in his real estate business, right? When he disguised these hush money reimbursements to Michael Cohen as if they were legal fees. These falsified business records aren't just a misdemeanor, they're a felony because they were created to conceal another crime. What's the other crime? Well, the DA has described what he believes the other crimes are. One of the implicated other crimes is the federal campaign finance violation that prosecutors say Michael Cohen committed with Donald Trump. It is an awkwardness for this case that federal crime was never charged against Donald Trump. It was only ever charged against Michael Cohen. Okay. But the reason that federal crime was never charged against Trump, well, it appears to be because the federal investigation into Trump's culpability in this matter was perverted on Trump's behalf by Trump's appointees.
Perverted.
Child.
So that is kind of this big gaping wound sitting right at the center of this trial. It is a constant reminder that it is bonkers that only Michael Cohen and nobody else ever paid a price for this criminal scheme, right? It is also a constant reminder, of something else and something bigger than this case. It is a big, bright, flashing warning light about what we as a country should expect in a second Trump presidency. You know how scary it is to think about Bill Barr doing this with ongoing investigations, reportedly, with cases that have already been pled to, with sentences that have already been recommended by the Justice Department after conviction, for him to go in there and get in there and just take apart all of those cases on Trump's behalf because Trump told him to? They were able to do some of that. They would very much like to do a lot more of that, which could upend any citizen's life in this country at the whim of Donald Trump. Right? We do not talk nearly enough about what Trump succeeded in doing to the U.S. Justice Department when he was president. He ousted U.S. attorneys. He got investigations into himself and his allies kiboshed. He got the case against his disgraced national security advisor thrown out, even though he had already pled guilty. He got the sentencing recommendation for Roger Stone reduced after Stone's multiple convictions. He got the Justice Department to investigate and even prosecute prominent Democrats he didn't like, even when there was zero case to be made. That all is worse than anything Richard Nixon ever did. And he was pretty bad on that front.
Yeah.
It is arguably the worst thing any modern president has ever done to the U.S. Justice Department, to the rule of law in this country. It is the kind of scandal we should be keeping front of mind every single day as he tries to get back in the White House right now. It is absolutely the blueprint for where they would start to try to complete the unfinished business, right, of the first term if Donald Trump returns to the White House. That is where this case comes from, right? The tawdriest case imaginable.
What do you think?
Well, I'm just thinking of weird that I have forgotten many of these details. Like that's how crazy the Trump years have been and the amount of crimes he's committed have been, that like there's so many that we forget about him. She brings up Richard Nixon. They broke into Watergate. They broke into a building and stole files. And that was a big enough deal that he would have been removed as president. And he resigned, right? Like there's 20, 30, 40, 50 of those stories that are more serious from this administration. Like this administration did nothing but break the law the whole time. And I don't know if she's going to get to Congress stepping in here. Does she talk about that? I don't want to bury the lead.
No, she's just talking about Trump weaponizing the Justice Department. I mean, it goes, and then there's more, but not about Congress. Like,
so
what do you
when
mean?
this was
Which
over,
part of Congress are you talking about?
Well, when this was all over, when Trump lost power, he didn't have the Justice Department anymore. He had James Comer and Jim Jordan go after Alvin Bragg. They went to New York and held hearings about New York they went on a field trip.
That's years and years later. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Once
Trump.
Yeah. This is 2019, end of 2018. Early 2019. And then years later, they did that.
And Alvin Bragg's the one that brought the charges finally as soon as Barr left. He's like, all right, now Barr's gone. Nobody can mess with me. Like, that's why this took so long to show up. Barr had to be gone. But even then, the Republicans in Congress tried to run cover. They immediately started smearing Alvin Bragg. They held multiple hearings. They hauled him before Congress multiple times. Yeah, like this is there's just so many people willing to do whatever Donald Trump asks them to do that it's maddening. It's honestly maddening. Nobody should do that for anybody ever in any scenario. You should never just do everything someone says. But so many people do it with Donald Trump, and they don't even stop to think like, look at all the people who have done things for Donald Trump. Where are they now? Once they got caught doing something they shouldn't, they're gone. They're not in the inner circle anymore. They're out. A lot of them are in jail. A lot of them are going to be in jail. Just I don't get this. I just don't get these Republicans' love for this guy. It's crazy.
Well, I think what I want to point out about it is just the beauty of that timeline. I mean, that is the complete story. Like when someone like I mean, the everyone on the far right is so low information, right? But they always just all they hear are the talking points. Well, why wasn't this case brought in 2016? And you could list, 100 different reasons. Like I'd heard all those stories separately, but seeing the timeline together, like really understanding the timeline with the pieces of Jeffrey Berman's book, like I mean, that is the complete story. This case couldn't be brought any sooner. That's the reality because Donald Trump weaponized the Justice Department. He had indictments changed his name so he wouldn't even be mentioned, right? To try to make it look like Michael Cohen paid off a porn star that he didn't even have sex with. Like, I mean, the corruption is disgusting here. This case absolutely needs to be brought. Some random lawyer shouldn't be the only person punished. Trump, on his own, decided to sleep with a porn star, have an affair with a Playboy bunny while Melania was pregnant. These were his choices. Then he decided, because he had such a problem with women because of that Access Hollywood tape, that's what was going on, that he needed to cover all this up. That's campaign finance violations. Like, all of this is a self inflicted wound, and he commits crime after crime after crime to cover up his previous crimes. That's why we're here. This is the soonest that Alvin Bragg could drag this case to trial. And Trump has been defrauding people in New York for so long. These people are sick of him. Like,
Yeah.
you got to understand, the rest of us, for a lot of people, we've just become intimately, acquainted with being defrauded by Donald Trump. For people in New York City, like particularly in Manhattan, this has been going on forever.
And that's what happens when you elect an actual con man. Like, have you noticed that the more Trump is investigated, the more crimes they find? Like his entire life, it appears, possibly everything he's done has been at least like rooted in crime. All the loans he obtained, all the times he stiffed people, his predatory practices, like everything about Donald Trump appears to just be a scam. All of it. How many? But again, we have Republicans showing up every day like, no, 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 no. Ignore everything that your lying eyes are telling you and just think for 1 second, what if there's a deep state that is actually planting all of these stories and all of this evidence, and they also run all the judges, like they have control over all the judges and all the juries and all of the left-wing media. Like they're that powerful. That's the story that you should believe, not that this obvious criminal who keeps losing like default cases that he has no shot of winning. Not him. He's not the criminal. It's this whole other thing where there's a deep state. That's what blows my mind, guys. Like why would any sensible person choose to believe this crazy deep state conspiracy over just what you're seeing right in front of you? And it also interesting, a lot of people in the box when Rachel Maddow was talking wanting us to stop that recording, but now that it's time and she said what she has to say, no more in the box.
Oh, we're not done. It's gonna get worse. Don't if you guys think that Rachel Maddow didn't just spend like the first 25 minutes of her show revealing horrifically damning information about Trump, it continued. The education is not over.
Well, before you continue, guys, I know it's a little slower today. We're gonna it's going to be heavy on information, not on debate until later. So our numbers will be a little lower. If you could help us out while you're listening, just hit that like button.
We are
Also,
taking Republican debates though. Like if somebody
correct.
wants to talk, that's fine. 100% request. We want opposition anytime.
I just want to. There's a couple people that requested. I wanted to get at least like 15 or 20 minutes in, so we had like a base of what we were talking about. I didn't want to be derailed immediately, but yeah, anybody that wants to jump in now. By the way, thank you, Kofefi House Politics, for the donation, saying great live so far. Appreciate that, my friend.
Guys, please keep tapping the screen. We really appreciate it. It will help us get to the For You page. We want as many Republicans to be forced to watch Rachel Maddow deliver the truth as possible. Keep tapping the screen, even get a finger workout, even while we're playing.
If there's a
the
Republican
video.
nearby,
Let's get to 100.
hold your screen in front of their face. If there's a Republican nearby you, just make them watch Rachel Maddow.
And again, if you would like to donate to us, this is our job. This is what we do for a living. All grassroots donations are appreciated. This is Cash App and Venmo. Write us a note like an F. Mary Banish of politicians, or a funny dad joke, or whatever you want to tell us within reason, as long as it's not completely vulgar and we'll get our live taken down. We will read it.
Yeah, all that. Back to Rachel.
The headline was 72 hours until all hell breaks loose. This was the headline on a fundraising email the Trump campaign sent on Friday. Not just predicting, but kind of imploring former President Trump's supporters that they should show up in New York City at the courthouse for Trump's criminal trial this morning. He says in the fundraising email, if we fail to have a massive outpouring, then all hell will break loose. So again, that went out on Friday. Did it work? Was Donald Trump able to get that massive outpouring in the streets that he was begging for today from his supporters? Did it work? Alas, no, it did not work. This is what it looked like outside the courthouse. You can see there's a few Trump flags. There's a lot of members of the press. There was one flag that says Trump or death. There was one guy holding a Trump 2028 flag, which at first glance looks like it might just be a call for Trump to stay president indefinitely and never leave, until you notice the little tiny text in the top corner of the flag that says Don Jr. Oh, right. Should be Don Jr. in 2028. A monarchy, right, under the Trump family, just like America's founders intended. There was also this truck which circled the courthouse several times. This truck appears to be the same truck, or at least a similarly decorated truck to the one that Trump posted on his social media account a few weeks ago, which featured a decal we are not going to show that shows President Biden bound and gagged and tied up like he was being held
That's just his
prisoner
fantasy,
in the bed of the
though.
truck.
That's just a fantasy for him.
But it wasn't a crowd. Trump did not get his mouth.
So that's the guy that Trump posted up that picture of on his True Social account. That's one of the times he violated, or I mean, like, I don't know if you guys remember that, but that guy basically drove to New York. So Trump asked his supporters to come to this rally, like his New York supporters, and the people that come, like, I'm one of the people that has watched every Trump rally in existence, and it's really sad. But like the people in the pregame show that want to talk, these are like, it's like Jimmy Buffett fans, except for Jimmy Buffett has like millions of fans that follow him around the country, like the parrot heads. That's what I would liken the people that were outside the courthouse to. I recognize several of them as people, as the Trump supporters that tour around the country. That truck in particular follows the Trump rallies. As well as several other people that were there are at every single Trump rally. This is just a traveling circus at this point.
What a crazy thing to tie your identity to. Just like a old dude who like made some money and was probably a con man. But even if you want to give him like the benefit of the doubt, he's just like an old guy that made some money and was a one-term president. And you're like, I'm dedicating my life now to following this man everywhere I go. Are you going to hang out with him? I am not. We are not friends. He does not want to hang out with me, but I am going to follow him everywhere. And just to hear him say the same dumbass line. Like, it's not even that good of a performance. I've watched it. It's a pretty good performance for Trump, but it's not. I don't know. I don't think it's rewatchable.
Massive outpouring of Trump supporters today. He got a few dozen people, not many. There were a bunch of anti-Trump protesters, though, including these folks who were gathered behind that banner that says "No one is above the law." They were there. Trump has repeatedly and explicitly called on his supporters to show up in large numbers to support him at his arraignment, at his court hearings, and now at his first criminal trial. He really wants it. He keeps asking for it. It does not seem to be happening, which on the one hand feels like a relief in terms of security concerns. On the other hand, feels like it's got to inflect somehow the dynamic inside, that the dynamic outside in the streets is really absolutely a huge disappointment for Trump and his campaign. Joining us now is Lisa Rubin, MSNBC legal correspondent who watched the proceedings live inside the courthouse today. Lisa, I know it has been a long day. Thank you very much for being here.
Oh, Rachel, thank you for having me.
So you are a legal correspondent for us here on MSNBC. Before that, I know you describe yourself as a recovering lawyer. You are an experienced lawyer. Was this a normal day in court today?
You know, there's partially what was extraordinary is just how normal it was. I was saying to somebody else today that it was a weird swirl of the mundane and the extraordinary throughout the day. So we had moments that were blistering and their boringness, and even the former president appeared to be bored by them, and I think that's a generous description. That includes when jurors were reading off their answers to the jury questionnaire, because of course, when somebody's not reading the questions to them and they're just ticking off one by one what their answers are, it's not the most scintillating thing to listen to. On the other hand, there was a lot of argument that was specific to this case and to the former president, and specifically listening to the DA's office outline some of the evidence that they would like to present and on which they wanted some clarifications from Judge Merchan was fascinating, because it shows you just how thoroughly they have researched this case and found documents and evidence to support the general scaffolding of the story that Michael Cohen has told.
Let me ask you about something that happened right at the end of the proceedings today, Lisa. It was right at the end of the day, and at the beginning of the day, they had that discussion you were just describing about what evidence is going to be allowed. It does give us some sense of the scaffolding, as you say, on which they are going to build their case. But at the end of the day, a sort of unexpected scheduling matter came up. Trump's lawyers asked if Trump could skip coming to court on the day next week when the Supreme Court in Washington is going to hear this.
I just have to say, like, how nuts this is to think about. This man is on trial for 34 felonies. You don't get on. You're not on
so
trial for
many.
34 felonies and then ask if you have to be there. Is everyone grasping how insane it is to be on trial for 34 felonies? He should be being brought in shackles, not.
Yeah.
Not,
no,
not
dude.
like,
just
hey, I don't know if I'm gonna come to court on Wednesdays. I've got some other things to do. It's just 34 felonies. It's no big deal.
just a quick reminder that there's two candidates running for president right now, and just think about if you ever thought this would happen in your life. One of them would be in court his entire campaign for multiple felonies. He's already been found liable for 3 civil crimes. 3 times he's been found liable. He owes $500 million. If I would have told you guys in 2015 that somebody that was just nonstop on trial and keeps losing court cases was going to be the front runner for one of the two parties, you wouldn't believe that. You would never believe that. This is crazy. The party, especially from the party that's like, we're law and order. What the fuck? How are you law and order? You are neither. And that show does suck.
Yeah, and again, this we're not debating whether or not he's guilty of the charges. He is. He signed the documents. There's 34 counts of falsifying business records. There's no doubt. We're not debating whether or not he did that. They have the documents.
And just
you know.
So like the charges there, because he runs a business and he paid hush money through basically a campaign contribution, because they're saying it's a campaign contribution because it helped the campaign. And then Trump paid him back for legal services. He didn't. That's also fraud. Donald Trump putting on his books that he's paying Michael Cohen this money for legal services, that's also fraud. And then any loan he's obtained with using those books, that's also fraud. See how this works? Like, it's not just one fraud. Like, this could lead to multiple more crimes. This isn't ending for Donald Trump. The more we investigate, the more crimes show up. It's not going away. There you go. There's your guy, Republicans. Congratulations.
Oopsies.
Case in which he's claiming he's immune from prosecution. And of course, in this criminal trial, Trump is a defendant, and he's therefore required to be in court every day. He's not required to attend any Supreme Court case. In fact, he didn't go to the last Supreme Court case about his eligibility to be on the ballot. It seemed from your notes that you sent me about what was going on and what you could see there, it seemed like Judge Merchan sort of not took offense necessarily, but seemed to react strongly to that request from Trump's lawyers. Can you explain why that was and what happened there?
Yeah, well, there are a couple things, Rachel, that happened. One is this was the third request from Trump in his today alone to skip a particular day of trial. He also asked for permission, for example, to skip trial for his son Barron's high school graduation. He also said that he doesn't want to have to be here on Wednesdays because that's a day the judge traditionally is not going to hold trial, and Trump wants to be able to go out and campaign, and Todd Blanche noted that. And the judge basically...
Yeah, he's on trial for 34 felonies. It doesn't really feel like being there, guys, and is whining nonstop. Like, if we get to it, you should see his whining this morning because he's on trial for 34 felonies because he decided to have sex with a porn star and an affair while his wife was pregnant with a Playboy playmate and then cover it all up because he was afraid it would damage him with women voters. And now we're here, and it's not fair. He has stuff to do on Wednesdays while being on trial for 34 felonies. Like, that is the reality of where we're at. And the other thing that's driving me nuts, all over Fox, all over Newsmax, they're not going to let him go to his son's graduation. Trump was screaming last night after he came out of court. Yeah, the judge hasn't ruled on that. It's over a month away.
It's better
than
that.
The judge never ruled on that.
It's also better than that, Felice. They are not holding court on Fridays. They don't do it on Friday. Graduation's on a Friday. It's not even going to come into play.
But, I mean, it's more... He said, but saying the judge told him he can't go, which is not true because the judge never ruled on it.
Right. Yeah.
There's no court
and he's
order.
Not going to need
and he has everyone on Newsmax and Fox lying and saying the judge put in an order he couldn't go to his son's graduation, and that has never happened.
Just another thing I would like to point out that, like, if I asked
when you're on trial for 34 felonies, you don't get to go to high school graduations. Is that what you're going to point out? When normal people are on trial for 34 felonies, they don't go to graduations.
All the times do they still play that at graduation?
And yeah, if you need to know why there's no court on Wednesdays, it's because Judge Juan Merchan is in charge of mental health court, which is extremely in-depth court where you have to determine people's mental fitness, and that's what he does on Wednesdays.
They might want to pop Trump in on one of those Wednesdays. They may want to just check it. They may want to just check. That could be his out.
I'm surprised he hasn't gone the insanity route yet. I'm sure he's holding out on that.
He's got enough ammunition in, like, quotes he could bring of himself. Be like, no sane person would say this. That would be a slam dunk case.
High school graduation.
Guys, keep tapping the screen. Let's get to 140K. Just while we're watching the video, tap, tap, tap.
He also said that he doesn't want to have to be here on Wednesdays because that's a day the judge traditionally is not going to hold trial, and Trump wants to be able to go out and campaign, and Todd Blanche noted that. And the judge basically said, look, I'm going to try and take Wednesdays off, but if this thing is moving slowly, I reserve the right to call you back here on Wednesdays. That's more of a courtesy to you and also something that I do to ensure that I can keep my other cases moving. But in terms of the moment where Judge Merchan appeared to take umbrage, it was because Todd Blanche said, we don't think we should even have to be here. And he was suggesting they never thought that this case should be heard now because Trump is a candidate for president, and also because their contention is that Trump can't get a fair hearing here in Manhattan because of all the pretrial publicity. Because Judge Merchan has ruled on those motions,
Can we
he was
pause that real quick?
particularly offended by
This is
the
this thing that Trump does. He does nothing but make media appearances. He does nothing but like complain to the media. He does nothing but social media, and then complains that there's a media storm. Like, do you see how he operates? He creates this storm. Then he's like, "Well, I can't be responsible. Like, I can't get a fair trial." Well, shut the fuck up once in a while would be a good idea.
Josh, you're not listening. It's self-inflicted. That's why, like, another judge heard this already. But Josh, you have no idea what's ever going on. You just hear random Republican lies and just repeat them in our chat all day long. But another judge, an appellate judge, heard this emergency thing, like, we can't get a fair trial. And he's like, if you can't get a fair trial, that's because you decided not to get a fair trial by talking about your case in the media. It was a choice he made. Nobody held a pew pew to his head and said, go talk about your case. He decided to do it every day. And that's why, I mean, no one made him do that.
And it's not like, Josh, you know how when you talk, nobody listens? Well, when Trump talks, a lot of people listen, whether they're listening because they think he's smart, or they're listening because they think he's corrupt, or they're listening because they need a good laugh, which is usually why I listen to him. But responsible for your voice and the amplification of your voice. And if you amplify your voice and then people are like, wait, what did you say? And you're like, hey, you shouldn't have been listening. That's his argument right there. Like, stop listening to me. Well, I mean, just stay off media. I don't know what to tell you.
And then in the next day, he'll cry about the First Amendment. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, the arguments are circular, they make no sense. Well, in court, where the truth matters.
accusation or the contention that they shouldn't have to be here. And he sort of reeled back and said, see, I'm almost reeling back in my chair. You don't think you have to be here? And then he got quiet. And if you've ever had a relative like this, I do. Judge Merchan is a person who gets quieter as he gets angrier. It's almost scary. And that's when he made it very clear. Trump is required to be in his courtroom by law. This is a state criminal proceeding. And despite the fact that he's got other legal things going on, including in front of the United States Supreme Court, he must be here on April 25th.
Wow. Yeah, you're exactly right. There's nothing like a family elder. Getting yelled at is one thing. There's nothing like a family elder who brings the volume down to the point where all you can do is wait to see if you will still have your life at the end of the sentence. I have been there. I know that feeling. That's exactly the feeling that I got when you sent me that note. So thank you for explaining what happened. Lisa Rubin, MSNBC legal correspondent, our tireless correspondent on these matters. Stay hydrated, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I just point something out real quick?
Catherine Christian.
Just for the jury, keep in mind that now they're doing jury selection. So you're not going to have anybody on that jury that is like a diehard Trump supporter. You're not going to have somebody on that jury that's like adamantly against Donald Trump. So think about, like, ideally, if these attorneys could all get the jury that they want, it would be people who are apolitical, who maybe don't keep up with politics. Think about those people that don't have a dog in the fight. When you line up the facts here, when you line up what happened, when you line up the story that Rachel Maddow's telling, which is exactly what they're going to tell in court, and Donald Trump comes out and says, hey, two defenses here. One, I'm the president. I can do and say whatever I want. Two, I think maybe statute of limitations is one of theirs, which is going to be, I think that's already been overcome. And three, like, the deep state's just after me. That doesn't fly with people
the statute of
Trump
limitations
supporters.
has already been overcome. Yeah,
right.
That's not a thing.
But there's how's a jury going to look at the evidence and say Donald Trump is a victim of a weaponized Justice Department? There's not enough evidence there. This jury isn't you, Trump supporters. Think like you're not obsessed with this guy. Think like you don't think his shit doesn't stink. Think like you've never heard of him, and then lay out those facts. Lay out the actual facts, and I don't know how you're going to ever conclude that Donald Trump isn't guilty of these crimes. It's overwhelming. This case will be fairly open and shut.
Oh, yeah. Just to ask, for all the people writing in the chat, Trumpers do not care. I just want to be clear that, like, if you're extreme, like extreme right or far left, yes, people already know who they're voting for. That's not who we're trying to talk to. So don't worry about it.
Who has lived the life of these prosecutors who were in court bringing this case today. She's a former assistant district attorney in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Ms. Christian, I really appreciate you making time to be here with us. Thank you.
I'm glad to be here, Rachel.
Can you tell us, I guess I'm most interested in your overall impression of how today went. And again, sort of version of the question I asked Lisa, was this a normal day in court? Was this the kind of proceeding, the kind of pace, the kinds of yeses and nos from the judge that you would expect in a typical New York DA's case? Or is this really...
She used to be a district attorney, so she has a lot of good information about the case, whether you're right or left, like a lot of good things about pre-trial upcoming hearings and things of that nature.
Well,
Guys, keep tapping the screen. Let's get to 160K.
You say whether you're right or left, but if you're right, like, you're not really listening to these. Like, you just need feelings.
Well, I mean, it's about the structure of the trial and like some interesting, like it's called a Sandoval hearing, which I didn't previously know about. So I think everyone will find it interesting if you want to know like how things are going to go in the next couple weeks.
Does this really feel different?
It was normal. It was interesting. Some of my colleagues who are former federal prosecutors were shocked because it's very different in the federal system. The judge is the one who does all of the questioning for the voir dire, and it's really much more smoother. In the state system, in New York State, the attorneys take a part of it. Also, in the state system here in New York, there's a lot of preliminary matters that happen right before jury selection, like what you heard this morning, issues about what evidence the prosecutors want to bring in. There's also, I think tomorrow's going to happen, something called the Sandoval hearing. What is a Sandoval hearing? Whenever a prosecutor wants to cross-examine a defendant about prior convictions or prior bad acts, they have to give notice to the defense, and then the judge will decide which ones, if any, the prosecutors can question the defendant about. And that will be another hearing, which also happens before jury selection. So this happens. And in a case like this, where you have a high profile defendant who there's strong feelings on both sides about him, it's going to be much more long a proceeding. So you had 96 people who were brought in as prospective jurors, 50 of them sort of self-identified that they can't be fair and impartial, so they're gone. So now you're left with 46. That's not shocking on a case like this. And according to Donald Trump's lawyer, 80% of them should have self-identified, and that you only had in Manhattan only 50 out of 96 is not bad. And the judge is moving along as fast as he can. He's a very fair judge, and he's a very smart judge, and he does move things along quickly. Wednesdays he has off because he's the presiding judge of Manhattan Mental Health Court. So in addition to this trial, he has a heavy-duty calendar of those cases which requires patience and special attention. So that's why on Wednesdays, this court is not in session for the Trump trial.
Those pending motions that were handled by the judge today before the voir dire started with the potential jurors, they were substantive and interesting. We got to hear argument between the two sides about, what aspects of X alleged affair could be described in front of the jury. And we got to hear discussion about whether or not the alleged alleged illegal agreement with this publishing firm, the National Enquirer publisher, whether evidence about that and meetings around that alleged agreement can be brought in front of the jury. It was all really interesting stuff. When we have the Sandoval hearing that you were describing, would you expect that to also be, for lay observers, a substantively interesting thing about what's going to happen in the trial, about the strength of the evidence, and indeed about the contours of the alleged crime?
Yes, and
this is really interesting, this part. Like, she's going to describe, like, how important it is for, like, the judge to be fair, so later the case can't be thrown out on appeal.
We'll see, which is what you saw earlier today, is how fair Judge Michon is. The Access Hollywood tape, which many of us have seen, we don't have to describe what Donald Trump said. He said that cannot be shown to the jury. It is too prejudicial. However, a transcript can be played. or read to the jury. He also said that the deposition that was taken in the Jean Carroll case cannot be shared with the jury. Again, too prejudicial. We'll see the same thing at the Sandoval hearing. The prosecutors are going to ask for a number of prior bad acts. The
Can you
general
stop right
rule
there for a
is
sec?
anything
Wait, hold
beyond
on.
10 years is considered too remote. So if they ask for prior bad acts of Donald Trump beyond that, the judge will probably say no, that's too remote. I don't know what the 13 bad acts they're going to ask for.
Did you?
Yeah, it's just wild how much when I was I don't remember who it was. It might have been Lisa Rubin tweeting this yesterday, but she was talking about the evidence that like was and wasn't going to be allowed. It's just I just got a chuckle at how much evidence there is that is prejudicial against Donald Trump, and by that like it's so overwhelming and makes him look so bad that the jury can't hear it and maintain like a level of fairness. That's what he's ruling on here, and there's so much stuff like things that were true, things that Donald Trump said, like the Access Hollywood tape and this.
The Karen McDougal.
Yeah.
Well, so the Access Hollywood tape, they can't hear it. They can
Right.
they can hear either a transcript, like a reading of it, or they can read a transcript. They can't play actual Billy Bush and Trump. And with like the Karen McDougal, that's the Playboy bunny he had an affair with. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. Sorry, I have a lot of information in my head this morning. I'm a little tired, but I'm pretty sure what happened with that is like it will make them they can't be fair if they know that like Melania was pregnant while that was going on. So I don't think they can introduce that Melania was pregnant while this affair was going on.
Right. I saw specifically from the E. Jean Carroll deposition, they wanted to introduce the part where he's like, historically, if you're a star, they let you do it, right? Like when he was asked that question,
Yeah.
and they won't allow that. Again, things that he
Which makes
did
sense.
and
I
said.
mean, I get it. Because I think
Yeah.
just hearing that as a woman, you'd just be like, F this guy. So, I mean, I get it. Like, I do understand. Like, if it's just in these matters, like what we're talking about with the hush money trial, all these other things, I think Juan Marchand is doing a really good job. And I don't know, Baga, if at this point anything will make you guys feel better, but it does seem like he's taking a lot of care, considering things, because if it is just too prejudicial, like we're saying, if we just throw all these shitty things that Trump did at the jurors and they're just like, then the case will be overturned on appeal. So that's why it's so important in the beginning to make sure that, this is a fair trial.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's just like there's a lot of stuff that has had to be thrown out. Things that are real and that happen, and that tells you all.
Oh
you
yeah,
need to
I mean
know
they're
about who
all
Donald
real.
Trump
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
no one's. Yeah, he did
Yeah.
all the shitty things. He did all the shitty things.
Like he's such a piece of shit that it's hard to give him a fair trial. That's what's crazy. He's committed so many crimes and done so many shitty things that it's really, really hard to get a jury that won't be biased by the things he did. That's just think about that for a second. That's who we're dealing with right now.
Keep tapping the screen, guys. Let's get to 175K.
Be quiet, please. I have to do all the taps. She got mad at me earlier. Keep tapping the screen. Let's see if we can get to what number did you say?
175.
100. Let's call it 180 for Felice. So tap the screen. I do have a comment from Will. Just ask Josh if he'd blow Trump if asked. It's a question for you, Josh.
Gary
Thanks for
said
being here,
Biden
by
was
the way,
found
Josh.
to be incompetent. That's funny, Gary, because the person who was asleep yesterday all day was Trump.
And also, that didn't happen. Biden was never found incompetent. A guy said that he thought a jury might think that Biden would be too sympathetic. That's what they said.
Imagine if Biden,
a non-therapist, a non-medical professional, a non-expert said that he thought a jury would find Joe Biden too sympathetic. And then all the people on your side said, shit, how do we spin this? And then they're like, hey, we're going to just start saying that Robert Hur found Joe Biden to be unable to do his job, right? Or incapable of doing his job. But that's not what he said, is it? It's not what he said at all. He said a jury might find him sympathetic. That's what he said. But you're just easily tricked.
It's funny because it's like all you hear from Trump is like it's never before seen, like the first time in history. And yesterday, that's very true for Donald Trump. Yesterday was never before seen. The start of a criminal trial for a president of the United States, that was never before seen. And Sleepy Dawn could not was literally. It looked like he just had his Jello at the senior citizen home and was just nodding off at the table during his never before seen moment. Finally, Trump had a genuinely historic day and he couldn't stay awake. Sleepy Dawn couldn't stay awake for
Well,
it. That's too bad.
if you smash 3 fillet of fishes and then have to go sit in a courtroom, you might get a little sleepy too. Okay, that's not. It's sleep food.
He probably did go to McDonald's.
I doubt the judge is going to allow them to ask any questions about the 3 open indictments. He, of course, has a Fifth Amendment right, and there are 3 open indictments. They're not convictions. The civil fraud trial, he should be, Donald Trump could be cross-examined, not about that he was found liable of falsifying business records. Why? Because he's charged with that here. But he might be cross-examined about the fact that the judge found him not credible. You may recall he was called back about whether or not he violated the gag order, and talking about the judge's court attorney. He certainly, Donald Trump, should be cross-examined about the defamation verdicts, lying about someone, false statements, twice. Jean Carroll, 1 verdict, and the other verdict, again, defamation. So I anticipate that the prosecutors will ask to cross-examine Donald Trump about that. That's, of course, assuming that Donald Trump testifies. But this is a very important hearing because convictions have been reversed because defendants have said, I would have testified, but for the fact that the judge told the prosecutors they could cross-examine me about every bad act. So it's a very important decision.
So do you hear what she's saying? That's a very important thing. I'm going to just play that again. Like, listen, what she's saying is very important.
Important hearing because convictions have been reversed because defendants have said, I would have testified, but for the fact that the judge told the prosecutors they could cross-examine me about every bad act. So it's a very important decision that the judge is going to make.
Yeah, it's important in terms of fairness to the defendant. It's also important to those of us watching this in terms of understanding the elements of Donald Trump's past that may be starting to haunt him in court this week, sort of for the first time ever. Catherine Christian, former assistant district attorney in the Manhattan District.
Drew, what's going on?
Hi, Drew.
Hey, how's it going?
We're having a lovely day hanging out with Rachel Maddow. How about you?
Pretty good, not bad. I can't complain.
When was the last time you got an opportunity to watch Rachel Maddow?
I hate Rachel Maddow.
So today, you're welcome. See, I told you. I don't know if you were here earlier.
She's the most popular news show on cable TV.
No, she's not.
So
Stop it.
Yes, she is.
No, she's not.
I would imagine Hannity might be. But
I don't know. It's one of those
I
two.
think
She
it's,
was for a while. I mean, like, obviously ratings come out weekly, so that gets
Yeah, no,
tricky.
I've looked at it. I know she's not even close.
Yeah,
I think she's the highest rated on MSNBC.
She's the highest rated on MSNBC for sure.
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
like for sure.
But she's not the highest rated cable news program by far.
Anyways.
Again, I'm just talking. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you guys only watch MSNBC, so in your world, she's the highest rated.
To be honest, I don't.
That is the Drew. I
I'm
watch
playing,
all of
relax,
your news
joke,
and all of my news. I take absolute offense to
Teasing.
that. I
That was
am
a joke.
extremely well read, and that's
I was
just not the
joking.
case.
Let's move on. I was
Apologize
joking.
to her, not me. It's fair. You can make fun of me, but you need to apologize.
So I'm going to be honest about this case. I barely understand it. So maybe you guys can clarify it a little bit. From what I understand and from what I saw, like what Michael
So
Cohen
you have
got.
not been listening to the extreme explanation. We just did the 30-minute in-depth explanation.
I do, but it to me it seems like legal gymnastics. So just break
All right,
it down in layman's
simply-
terms. Pretend
yeah,
I'm
simply-
a dummy.
Yeah, simply put, Donald Trump and Michael Cohen, his attorney, came up with this idea that they would pay before the election that they were going to pay Stormy Daniels $130,000 in an exchange. She would sign an NDA that she wouldn't talk about their affair. Michael Cohen went and he took out a loan. I can't remember if it was a HELOC. I think it was a HELOC loan.
It's a HELOC.
Yeah. He took out a HELOC loan, paid her, and then Trump paid him back in installments of $35,000.
which added up to
the-
like 480,000.
yeah,
Can you guys explain just for everyone in the chat, like what type of what type of
Home
loan that
equity
is? or
line
is
of
that
credit.
Home equity line of
Okay,
credit.
thank
It's,
you.
it's a second mortgage basically.
yeah. But you can take it out for like a lesser value. You can loan against the equity in your home.
Why do you think he took a loan out against the equity in his home?
Well, I've read his book.
Well, it acts like a credit card almost in effect. So he could
Yeah,
use
no,
it for the
I know that.
130, and then it's open. He still has an open line that he could use for other things.
Yeah,
Trump
so in his
took this
book,
loan out, or Michael
No,
Cohen?
no,
Michael Cohen.
took it out
Okay,
himself.
that's what because you said Trump. I just want to
sorry.
clarify. Okay,
I
Michael
probably
Cohen. That
wasn't
makes
clear. Yeah,
sense.
Michael Cohen took the loan. So that because that was used to help his campaign, that's a campaign contribution. It's way over the limit. It wasn't reported, and then Trump wrote the $35,000 repayment checks as services, like for his legal services.
Yeah, it's
which
legal
is,
fees.
So all of that is a crime. And Michael Cohen already went to jail for this exact crime. And so doesn't it make sense that he did a
went
crime
to
with
jail.
Trump
He
and
went
they
to
would
jail for. I read the charges that he went to jail for. He went to jail for 2 charges for campaign contributions. One as a corporation, one as an individual.
Yeah.
One for, I guess, lying on about getting his HELOC, something about getting his HELOC. Some bank fraud there or something like that. And I forgot what the other 2 were, but they weren't really defined like in Trump's. Didn't really coincide with what they're trying to say that Trump did. Now,
Yes, it does. The
only
indictment
because-
reads like a story, and Trump is individual one.
I understand that, but who's to say that this was for the campaign and not for his marriage?
What?
Who's to say the
That's an
reason why
interesting one because after you probably don't know this, but after Trump made it into the White House, he said, "Oh, we won, so now I don't have to pay her." And Michael Cohen said, "That's not how that works." Yeah, it was for the campaign because Trump, being the person that he is, that never likes to pay his bills, once he won, was like, "Oh, do we still have to pay this woman?" Because
And then it was
because
under.
I don't
and then
like
it
to
was-
pay anyone.
Drew,
And it was my
Drew.
understanding that Michael Cohen almost went on his own and did this.
Wait, Drew, but even if it was
Nicholas.
even if it was an attempt to hide it from Melania, the mere fact that it actually hid this from the American people and they committed a crime to do it, they committed campaign finance contributions because it was going to help him. It doesn't matter what Trump said. Trump can say like it was for Melania. It doesn't matter. It did help him. And they would be able to have data showing that it would have probably changed some people's mind had they known that. Like they'll have polling data on all that stuff. But the main thing is like, how can you say
on that? Like they'll have
like-
polling data.
I'm gonna have
on
to
all
come
that
back
stuff.
up. I'm gonna have to come
Yeah,
back
you're
up.
good.
The main thing is like, how can you say on that? Like they'll have polling data.
Yeah, the question I was going to ask is how can you say that Michael Cohen going to jail for this crime was legit, but then Donald Trump shouldn't go to jail? That's the question I'd ask. If you want to come back up there. Oh, we lost Felice. It's funny at first guess. Well, no, I think Drew's being honest. He may not know the details of the case, but he's picking it apart when he's hearing stuff. I think that's fair.
Okay.
That's better.
What were you saying?
Oh, I was just saying. So, I mean, Michael Cohen went to jail for this case. Donald Trump was his co-conspirator, right? Why would Donald Trump not go to jail?
Now isn't it beyond the statute of limitations?
No, they've already cleared that hurdle. I can't remember why that was ruled that it wasn't beyond the statute of limitations, but they've already cleared that
They
hurdle
connected
legally.
it with another crime or something like that.
I can't remember, but yeah, that's already been settled for this case.
I don't know. It just seems. Look, to me, this is what it seems like. It seems like that's something that would probably come up regardless of a campaign. That like he would not want people to talk about his extramarital affairs if he even had it, which we don't know for sure. I would assume he did.
But even then, his crime of paying it back using his business and writing it off as legal expenses is still a crime also.
Campaign contribution? That's a stretch, isn't it?
No. Wait, hold on. I'm not talking about it as a campaign contribution. I'm saying the fact that Donald Trump repaid it as legal services is also a crime, whether it was a campaign, like throw out the campaign contribution, just the fact that he lied about what he was paying for when it was really hush money, and he wrote it off as legal services, because he can write that off on his taxes too. That's a crime.
He's only
But didn't
charged
his-
with falsifying business records.
No, I
Like
understand.
that's what
and
it's
again,
that's what it's
I'm
about.
not making it like I'm right. I'm making it because I don't understand, and that's why I'm up here. I'm not trying to get any kind of a gotcha moment. I just don't get it. So, if your attorney, your personal attorney, gets a non-disclosure agreement signed by someone, pays the money out to someone, as a a lot of these big time people, they have these, this happens a lot where they do. There's nothing illegal about having a non-disclosure agreement.
No, which is why, I mean, Donald Trump's done a bunch of these.
Right.
It's just that this one happened during a campaign, and that's why it got the microscope. And then it turned out that outside of just the campaign contributions, Donald Trump committed fraud paying it back.
So if it wasn't during a campaign, right, and it was just
We probably
regular
never would've heard of
day-to-day
it.
Trump. Well, I'm just saying, if it wasn't, and wouldn't that be legal service? Like, would he be
No.
paying that?
No, because you're paying the
Like,
actual hush money, because of you can't, as your business. Like, I don't know if you've ever owned a business, but you can't lie about like what you spent money on, right? And so he's saying, I'm paying you $35,000 for legal expenses, and then he's going to be able to write that off. He can obviously that goes to the company, but what he's really doing is paying back $130,000 in hush money. That's fraud.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is, then what would be the proper how should he have put it in for taxes?
Trump should have gave him
There's no hush money. There's no hush money
Trump
line
should have
on
given him $130,000 cash, or a personal check that said, "This is for the hush money payment."
reimbursement, just for reimbursement.
Yeah, whatever reimbursement. But yeah,
for settlement of whatever.
whatever
So
you could. Yeah, you could write whatever you want on it, but that's not what he did.
Okay.
And this should go to show you, like, Drew, think about this. This is such an easy thing that, like, Donald Trump, this billionaire, could have made all this go away with a bag full of cash that he got from the bank himself. But instead, they tried to hide it. And then he tried to not only not pay it when he became president, but also tried to hide it so that he could write it off. Like, this guy will lie about anything and everything. That's why it's been so easy in the first 3 civil cases, because he's actually just like a really corrupt, crooked person. And every time they turn up a stone, there's like 10 more Trump crimes underneath that stone.
What is it about me that doesn't think that this is such a big deal? I mean, and not just me. I think a lot of other people on the other side. Like, why don't I think this is like is there something wrong with me?
Well,
Like,
no,
I don't think this is such a big deal. I really don't.
Hold on, not just because something is a crime doesn't mean that morally we need to think it's such a big deal. But do you not see the implications of having like in this case it would be a felony conviction, somebody with a felony conviction for attempting to defraud the American people as president? You like that's wild, dude. Like we can do so much better. There's not another candidate that has run that has this problem. He's the only candidate in the history of the United States with this problem.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I honestly think, and this this is neither here nor there, but I honestly think if he didn't pay her and it went out, it wouldn't have moved the needle in 2016. They already knew about the grab her by the pussy. He was in the.
Yeah, I agree.
He was in the tabloids.
No, I don't agree. Trump,
life.
the reason is because of the Access Hollywood tape. He was in trouble with women, particularly white women.
He still is.
And they were so
that's
fearful. They were so fearful that if it piled on, right, it's not just Stormy Daniels, it's Karen McDougal as well. They were trying to cover up that Melania was pregnant and he was having months-long affair with Karen McDougal. It's more than just that. And actually, another really interesting part of what Rachel Maddow goes into next is Trump's relationship with the National Enquirer and David Pecker, and it's about the 2016 election. Like, he had a deal with David Pecker to slander Hillary Clinton, basically. And that's like, I mean, it's a lot deeper than just even the payoff payments with the National Enquirer. It's also about bringing false stories about Hillary Clinton. But yeah, it was all because of women voters. They could not have it stacked on. That's why the cover up. Drew, because if not, he's right. Just give her a bag of cash and tell her to go away. Like they had to try to cover it up because they didn't think they could risk one more scandal on top of the Access Hollywood.
Weren't these alleged affairs like way in the past? Like
Yeah.
you said,
Yeah.
right? You said that Barron wasn't even born yet, right?
Right.
For when it comes to Stormy, and then what? Then
With Karen, with Karen McDougal. I did not say Stormy. Drew, you
Oh.
never listen when I speak.
That's I'm waiting to talk.
Well, wasn't Stormy before Karen McDougal, or was that after?
I don't know.
Either way, keep
So
going.
he doesn't know either.
It
So
doesn't
he
matter.
doesn't
Those aren't the crimes. None of that stuff matters.
No,
what he
what
did
about-
wasn't a crime.
I understand that. I'm just saying that this is maybe why I don't think it's that big of a deal, because it seems pretty strange that during the presidential campaign, all of a sudden they come out of the woodwork, to
Don't you think that's a good thing? Don't you think it's a good thing that when people run for political office, oftentimes the darkest corners of their past come out? Don't you think that's a good thing? That's exactly what people should do. Now, for somebody like Stormy Daniels, like if you want to, if somebody's out there portraying that there's somebody else and you have a counter narrative to that story, I think it's the right thing to do. But even if you don't think it's the right thing to do, of course you must understand that people recognize that that's profitable. At the very least, that's capitalism, baby. Like, you got a story to tell, go ahead and tell it. But I don't think it's a problem that politicians, when they get on the verge of becoming like winning, suddenly a bunch of people come out with stories about them. That makes the most sense to me. That's the time when you might be the most sympathetic figure. It might be the time when you're able to get back at somebody who bullied you, right, or who had a bigger pulpit than you, or was able to silence you, didn't, or tried to buy you off. Now's a good time because you get the media on your side, and the media will
I
help
just want
amplify your story.
From a woman's perspective, though, like what was happening, and this is just me again. Like I, as a victim of SA in my life, like I was so up, like with the Access Hollywood tape. Women, you don't understand this because you guys. I mean, actually, no, I'm not gonna say that because I don't even know. But like women, especially when it comes to SA, because of the power differential between men and women, like it's almost traumatizing when that tape of Trump came out, the Access Hollywood tape, women who have been victims of SA were traumatized. Like, can you imagine a world where Karen McDougal, where Stormy Daniels also, hey, where they, said people should know this.
see.
And if not, I should be paid for my silence, right? Because women are being put in danger. Many people, not just these people we're talking about in this case that got paid off, many women came out around the time of the 2016 election and were like, hey, I was SA'd by this man. Like, people, things that happened a long time ago, people were like, by the way, yeah, this Access Hollywood tape, what he's describing here, that's what he did to me. So it is very timely and very relevant for women that there could be a rapist in the White House. Yeah.
This is gonna be so. I'm gonna.
You don't care, Drew. I know you
No,
don't care.
no, I
But
don't.
I'm saying women do.
I'm saying this. With when the Access Hollywood video came out, what I took it as him describing really was gold diggers. Is what I thought he was talking about. I thought he was talking about these women that were so
That's the
starstruck.
most vile thing I've
Drew,
ever
you
heard.
heard-
That's not what he was
you heard
describing.
him
That's what
That's
it sounded like.
disgusting.
Drew-
You're disgusting.
Drew, that's
Why am I
that's
disgusting? That's what it sounded
Drew,
like he was saying.
Drew, hold on. Drew, hold on. What you're describing right now, again, these are your thoughts. Just remember that this isn't factually what happened. This is
No.
what you said in your words. My first thought was, yeah, Drew, this is the problem. Your first thought was to make the woman in the story or the women in the story not victims. Your first thought was,
Disgusting.
oh, he's talking
the
about
wording, the
those.
way he worded
Hold on,
it
Drew.
was
Hold on.
unfair.
Hold on. I know this is uncomfortable, but hear me out.
not uncomfortable.
These
It's
were
fine.
your thoughts, and that's the problem. Is that the first? And now we have stories. We know from E. Jean Carroll that's exactly what he did to her. He bragged about it, and we have stories of him actually doing it. And you're still here like, nah, I don't think so. The problem is your mindset from the very beginning. From the very beginning, you imagined, because he's not talking about anybody specific. You took this imaginary person that he's talking to about and immediately made them a gold digger. That's on you, dude. That's
He
your
wasn't
thoughts.
talking about an individual person. He was talking
No,
about
that's
himself.
you.
Do you
We're
have a
talking about
daughter,
you,
Drew? Do you have a daughter, Drew?
It's three.
That's 3 daughters. Okay, that's.
You would beat the shit out of anybody who said that around your daughters. Or if Donald
it
Trump
was
had
directly talking about my
walked in
daughters,
on
yeah.
one. Now imagine this. Imagine you're one of the parents from the Miss Teen USA pageant that Donald Trump ran, and he's known and they all know he would just walk in. He'd walk into their changing rooms. That's been widely reported. Imagine you were the parents of one of those people. You've already had that traumatic event, and now you find, so this is your daughter in this scenario. You already heard about that. You're pissed as hell. Then the same guy you hear on a call, or not a call, a recording, he didn't know it was being recorded, saying that you wouldn't have sympathy for that guy. And then years later you find out that somebody credibly accused him of doing that exact thing, and he lost the court case. You would beat the hell out of that guy if this was your daughter. But since it's not your daughter, your mindset completely turns off. Like, if this was your daughter, you'd probably do the right thing. But because it's not and it's politics, you've chosen to take this other side. And you got to recognize, Drew, that was your mind that went there. Nobody else told you to go there. That was what happened upstairs. That was your thought process.
See, you say that, but if you look at what his words and what he said, in particular, I think you
Want me
guys
to
are
read
the
'em?
ones that are twisting it.
Let
Want me to
Drew
read 'em?
double down.
He said,
No, I do, because
let me tell you what. Let me tell you the story. Here's what he said. He was talking. Let me give you the full context, Drew. Hold on. Let me give you the full context. He said he was talking about this lady, and he said, I moved on her like a bitch. And he didn't land this lady. And then he's like, but that's the thing with beautiful women. I just can't help myself. I see a beautiful woman, and I just start kissing them. And they let you do it, too. You can grab them anywhere. Grab them by the pee. And then turns out that long before he even had that quote, E. Jean Carroll had told multiple people, her therapist, her friends, her family, about the time that Donald Trump did that exact thing to her. Yeah, and here you are still defending it. You wouldn't defend it if it wasn't Donald Trump. You're only defending it because it's Donald Trump.
I'm defending it in the context that I don't believe E. Jean Carroll, but that's why, I guess.
I pray to God nothing ever happens to your daughters. But you would believe them because you love them. But it would be nice probably for the rest of the women if you would give them the same benefit of the doubt that you would give your daughters.
Look, I know this is.
Do you want your daughter to hang around Donald Trump?
Because it makes me look bad, but
Do you let your daughters hang around Donald Trump?
Listen, I'm thinking out loud. I'm saying because I automatically had a preconceived notion that E. Jean Carroll wasn't being honest. That's why I didn't connect the two things. I'm almost agreeing with you. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying. I'm saying that I
he
automatically.
confessed in the Access Hollywood tape to the E. Jean Carroll. That's what he was doing. It's out of his own words. Exactly what E. Jean Carroll said he did to her. He then was caught on tape describing it. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. And I don't know if you know. Do you know Michael Cohen? Like his 15-year-old daughter, Trump was. I mean, whatever you want to call lusting after as well. I mean, like this is a pattern for him.
Let's keep in mind when Trump was pressed on this.
The womanizing act, that goes without saying.
Let me just add a piece that when Trump was pressed on. Hold on, Drew, real quick. When Trump was pressed on this during his deposition for E. Jean Carroll, and they asked him about this exact quote, he's like, well, historically that's true with famous people. And they're like, do you consider yourself famous? He's like, yeah, I guess you could say that. He didn't disavow those words. He said, instead of disavowing the words, oh no, I was just joking, it was just locker room talk, he said, historically that's true for famous people. Are you famous? Yeah, I think you could call me famous. Like he could have just absolutely denied it. He didn't even do it.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how we got onto this from the case because that made me look bad. But again, at least I thought it through and I was able to say
That's
that
fair.
I wasn't able to. I just didn't connect the two and didn't look at it like that.
That's the hard part with, and this is why Trump does this, like the chaos theory. But if you connect all these cases that have happened, they're all like interwoven because they all include his business, like almost every one. And so the more cases that come out, the more crimes we're finding, and the easier these cases are. Like there will be big parts of his civil cases that make it into this case. just to go to show like what a criminal he is and how he operates in a criminal way. Like that's what they're arguing about right now in court is how much of the true stuff about Trump are we going to allow this jury to hear? Because some of the true stuff about him is so damning that there's no way he could get a fair trial. That is the defendant we're dealing with here right now. There's so much evidence, and even some of it's true, that is going to not be allowed because it's too prejudicial. Show me another case you could think of that's like that.
Well, I mean, any mob case, I guess, right? Comparing him to a mob
That's
guy.
I don't think that
That's-
helps you very
that's a
much,
great
but
job.
that's probably
That's a great
Trump
job.
does
true.
compare himself to Al Capone all the time.
He operates
but-
like a mob boss. They call him the boss. Go on Twitter, and you'll
I
be like,
know.
the boss has arrived. Like that's who he thinks he is.
All right, so getting
Don
back to the case,
Snorleone.
I mean, these are minor infractions, right? Wasn't it initially a
These are
misdemeanor? And then
felonies. 34 felonies.
wasn't initially a misdemeanor, and they had to add the felony from, I guess, the federal campaign finance to make it a felony. There was some kind of I don't know how to explain it, but in other words, the misdemeanor
They're
that was
committed in
originally
commission
charged-
of another crime. Yeah, like it's the combination of the two crimes that makes them felonies.
Similar
Right.
to
Or
similar
otherwise
to
the
like
statute of
RICO
limitations
charges for mob bosses. It's like a criminal, like it's a criminal machine. So they're picking apart each part, like the criminality of the entire machine. And every time they open up the books for the Trump org, turns out crime, 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 crime. It's just a
Okay,
crime
so-
family. That's all they are.
So just to refresh everything. So basically, because he paid the hush money to Michael Cohen and didn't mark it that way and marked it as an attorney's fee, that's basically what the charges are. And there's
That's one
33 charges,
part
so
of them.
I don't know what all the different charges are, all the different ones, but the main charge, I guess, is that the main?
No, they're all the same charge. That's what I was trying to tell you. It's all falsifying business records in the first degree. There's 34.
Oh, there's 30. All right, so there's 34 instances where he falsified records, but
And
all
here's what-
basically, if we were to sum it
here's
up,
what-
was what we just talked about.
Yeah, and now I want you to watch this. Like, if as you consume right-wing media, what they're going to do is they're going to find instances out of these 34 charges, and they're going to try and create some doubt. And they're going to focus on areas. Some of these charges probably won't stick, right? There's 34 just statistically in court cases. Some of them don't stick. So let's just say some don't. But the right-wing media is going to focus on like a few instances of these charges that don't fit, but it doesn't matter. Right? Like it's not a 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals guilty. You can remove plenty of those charges and he's still walking out with felony charges. So remember when you're consuming right-wing media that if they're not completely debunking every one of these felony charges, then they're unable to say that Donald Trump is innocent, but they will. They'll all say that he's innocent, and they will find these little tiny loopholes, and you'll see it all over social media. That everybody will be debating these little loopholes, but there's 34 charges. You got to get a lot of those thrown out before nothing is sticking.
And from when this first came out, I mean, even MSNBC and CNN, they all said this is the weakest of the cases, right?
Yeah, this case has gotten stronger since it first came out, for sure.
Now why? Why
This-
did it get stronger?
Because of the civil cases. The civil cases, they got full access to his books, and they've been able to. They can establish now patterns of deceit. They've figured out patterns of how they hid money, and now they're going back into those records and finding more ways that they hid money and more ways that they moved money around. There's
The initial charge.
he's
or-
probably
It's
Yeah, just
because
so you know, he's
there's
probably
a
gonna get hit-
court-appointed monitor called, her name's Barbara Jones, former federal prosecutor. She's the court-appointed monitor that is looking into the Trump orgs and Trump's personal finances. And like that's where they found the $50 million fake load Trump said he loaned to one of his companies. That's why now there's a hush-hush IRS investigation that's going on because of all the crimes that Barbara Jones has uncovered. And similarly, because we don't know exactly how Michael Cohen is going to be the scaffolding, and then it's a paper trail, but we don't know exactly how Alvin Bragg is going to present it. Like that's what Rachel Maddow was saying, and Suzanne Craig, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times journalist, also the one that reported on Trump, the IRS investigation going on about Trump, it's basically she's talking about the National Enquirer and the paper trail. The paper trail there. They're going to detail out that long relationship, how he was using the National Enquirer to smear Hillary Clinton. Like there's a lot of things coming out that weren't previously known because Alvin Bragg has kept everything other than like 34 counts of falsifying business records to his chest.
Are you allowed to do that? I thought in Discovery you have to share everything with them.
The trial just started, Drew. We're in jury. Yeah, yesterday was day one, so it will come back. Yeah, Discovery's later. We're in jury. We're selecting a jury, but yeah, it's the trial has started yesterday.
Okay. So when you get indicted, you don't get Discovery until the trial starts? You get indicted a year from now.
No, you've
a
had
year in
Discovery.
advance prior to the trial. You don't get any Discovery documents until the trial starts?
They have Discovery, like what the
what I'm
state
saying.
has. Have they turned it over? Yeah, they just did another dump of federal documents. That's why the trial was supposed to start on March 15th, and that's why it's starting April 15th because there was a month-long delay because finally Merrick Garland, the secret the Republican head of the DOJ, delayed turning over thousands upon thousands of documents that relate to Michael Cohen and did like a document dump to delay the trial for Trump another month. And they had to leaf through all of those. That's what the last month has been. I mean, yeah, if you're asking if the defense has the documents that the prosecution has, yes.
The case. That's what you making it like it just started now, so you wouldn't have Discovery documents, but they do as they came out. But like you said, because of this dump, they're behind on it, and that's what delayed the case. No, I understand that.
Well, so when they went through that Discovery, there was only the dump that Merrick Garland gave them. I think there were only like a couple hundred pages of that were relevant. So they've
so was it completely for delay?
Yeah, then
there was thousands of pages they dumped, and like 100 were relevant to the case.
Yeah. So one of the things, Drew, that's going to be interesting in this case is you're also going to see a pattern of Donald Trump going to the National Enquirer and planting stories about his political opponents, right? I don't know if you're aware of this, but the National Enquirer who killed the Karen McDougal story for him, they were planting stories. Remember the Ted Cruz, like his dad assassinated JFK? Turns out Trump paid for that. And Trump did that multiple times where he went to the Enquirer and either political or business associates, he planted stories about them.
And that's going to come out in this case?
Yeah, I think that's been allowed in.
That's part. Yes, that's part of the case. That's part of the Rachel Maddow talks about that at the end of her show.
Dude, listen. You know how
things
cool you could be if you beat all of your other Trump friends from abandoning ship. This is the Titanic, and this is you getting a lifeboat like 10 minutes before it hits the iceberg. There's like, hey, dude, want a lifeboat? And you know it's going to hit the iceberg. So you can jump off, and then everybody's like, man, that guy, how did he know? He's so smart. This could be you with MAGA World. You could be one of the first to leave, and you could be like, hey, guys, I saw it all before you did. Turns out this guy's just a dirty criminal.
Look, I'm against everybody. I don't think that I don't think I've ever said that Trump is this high and mighty everything in the world. What I think is because he doesn't go with the status quo, that like as a result of that, we're seeing a lot of dirtiness go on with the powers that be. And like I said, I've said this a million times.
But that's not true. But that's the thing.
It's a complete lie.
You still think it's him. He's the dirty one. He's been saying everybody else is dirty, but it's always been him. Always. Like, he has destroyed the fake. He has destroyed. Let me give you an example. He has destroyed the credibility of the FBI forever. Tell me one thing that you factually know that the FBI has lied about.
Well, I don't know. What was those two that were texting back and forth about
They didn't lie about that?
No, it came out. It came out that they had their security blanket
None of that was
with Russia, and
they said they didn't like Trump.
Well,
it's okay to be biased.
FISA.
Wait, hold on. But what did they do? He said we'll never let Trump get in office, and then Trump got in office. He had no power and he did nothing. This was him talking tough to his girlfriend. Like, it's not a crime. You're not showing me anything if you can't then point to something. What about the FISA warrants? Let's talk about it. What about the FISA warrants?
They were all based on the dossier.
What does a FISA warrant allow you to do?
It depends on what. I guess it depends on what it is. It depends.
Who does it allow you to surveil?
Whoever the person that they're willing to surveil.
Foreign nationals, people that aren't part of this country. You go to the FISA courts so that you can get a warrant to spy on people outside of this country, right? So when Donald Trump says they use the FISA courts to spy on my campaign, but those warrants only allow them to go to places like Russia, to follow somebody in Australia. What Trump really means is that his campaign was operating overseas, because the FISA warrants don't grant warrants for United States citizens.
Okay, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the FISA warrants were dead on arrival because it was based on a false dossier that was.
Well, see, you're right. See, there's more of the
No.
story that they have testified under oath in front of Congress that the Steele dossier was not that they didn't need the Steele dossier for the warrant. That the Steele dossier was included, but the warrants would have been granted with or without the Steele dossier, because the FISA courts correctly recognized the Steele dossier as exactly what it was. They're not idiots. They knew it was just Oppo research. In the Steele dossier, it tells you what can and cannot be confirmed. So it's a storybook that tells you, like, this can't be confirmed, this can't be confirmed. Here's the evidence that we used to confirm this. That's what the Steele dossier was. Again, you've just been lied to a lot.
Why did the deputy of the FBI get I don't know the names of the positions. Why did he end up getting fired over it?
Donald Trump fired like a million people in the FBI. Every time they did something that he didn't want, he fired them. That's why.
That's what we were going through the beginning of the show, how Donald Trump weaponized the DOJ. You know, Donald Trump says the DOJ is weaponized against him. That's what we were talking about. One of your guys' favorite talking points is, how did this happen in 2016 and the case wasn't brought until now? That's what Rachel Maddow was going through, an investigative journalism about the timeline of how Trump weaponized the DOJ and Bill Barr to take over the DC office, to do this stuff and to force Jeffrey Berman out of the Southern District of New York.
You don't think it was already weaponized?
No. How would it explain to me then how during the Obama administration, so during the election, it was the Obama Justice Department that was running things, right?
Right.
Okay. All this stuff came out about Trump, the Access Hollywood.
Right.
Were any charges brought by the Obama Justice Department against Trump?
No, there was still
Did the Obama Justice Department publicly open an investigation into anybody?
No, it wasn't public. No,
Yes, wrong. Hillary. They opened an investigation into Hillary. The only person that was investigated during the campaign was Hillary. Now, there were FISA warrants that allowed people to surveil people of the Trump team overseas, but Hillary was the one they opened an investigation into like a week or maybe 2 weeks before the election.
I thought
there is no evidence. Explain to me how
they weaponized the DOJ against Hillary, not against Trump.
Who did?
James
Obama?
Comey saying within a week or whatever many days it was before the election, what he did about Hillary is absolutely against policy.
Yeah, the point is that you said it was already weaponized. It wasn't.
Right.
And that's a great example that it wasn't weaponized, because if it was weaponized, the Obama administration would have done anything to help Hillary. But instead, they allowed that investigation to be announced, even though that investigation turned up nothing.
What? Hillary's?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she was smart. She was able to
No, there was no crime. That's why.
to bleach bit that her server.
That's a different case.
God, you're so low information, Drew.
What is bleach bit?
Sad.
Drew, what's bleach bit?
You wipe the server clean. It's a
How?
program.
Explain the process.
It's a program.
It's a program. Okay. And do you know how often they were using bleach bit?
No, do you?
Yes, I do. That's why this is, again, you haven't been given good information. They used bleach bit every day. So Hillary's server had a standing order. What would happen is it would forward her government emails to that server, and then she could access that server and read her government emails. Once the email was read, if she did not save it, they had somebody who wiped the server every day, every single day. And every single email that came to Hillary's government email address, we have a copy of, even though she deleted it on her server. Because you know who else has a server? The United States of America. We have
But
lots of
Comey
them.
did his report.
So
He said
we
that
had,
there were-
so
there
we had, we
thousands
had
and thousands
all
that were,
of her, we had
Drew,
all
just
of her
listen.
emails. So
Listen.
and what they did is when Comey then investigated, he said, okay, well this looks suspicious, so we're going to investigate it. They did an investigation, and it turned out that she didn't really do anything wrong.
She had it on a private server. That
Yes.
alone is wrong.
Okay, yeah, you're right. So she did enough wrong to get a slap on the wrist. And the reason it was a slap on the wrist is because previously in the Bush administration, I'm trying to remember this guy's name. He was a general. He had this girlfriend, a young girlfriend, and he was sharing actual classified information with her. And when he got in trouble, they just gave him a slap on the wrist. So there was already
Everybody
a
gets a slap
precedent
on
of
the
what
wrist.
happens if you
Petraeus?
Yeah, if you mishandle documents, it's a slap on the wrist. Hillary mishandled documents, but not nearly as severely as Petraeus did. She read them on a server that they said maybe could have been hacked. Nobody's ever showed that it got hacked. I think Russia claims that it did. We have no, and then they dropped those emails later on. I guess it did get hacked because they dropped the emails. Yeah. That's it.
Wikileaks attacked it, right?
Yeah. That's the whole thing, though. That's the whole case.
That's a big case. That's a big deal.
Yeah, she got punished. She lost her security credentials, which is exactly what happened to Petraeus.
Okay.
There's been consistency with how they treated that stuff, like exposing classified information. There's
I wanna be clear.
consistency.
And
Wait,
she
hold on real quick. Let
was
me just
never,
correct something. It was not hacked. The DNC server was hacked. I knew I was.
Oh, that's
yeah,
right. It was the
There's
DNC.
no evidence that hers was hacked.
Right. It was the DNC server, right? But it wasn't. It never went criminal.
Well, because there were no charge. He decided not to bring charges. But what he did that was different, he broke protocol, and he announced publicly. He held a press conference and he announced the investigation, and that is not protocol, and it is not normal. He went out of his way knowing that I've read his book. He said he knew that would hurt Hillary. He knew it would.
Right.
And he said he felt
Listen,
like he
the
felt
FBI does a lot of
obligated
things.
to do it.
You guys remember COINTELPRO? What happened in the 60s and 70s with all the civil rights leaders and everything else? I mean, the FBI had a they're not that clean. They have dirty sides of them.
And also, I hate to break it to you, but they're mostly conservatives, including James.
They're
Comey.
Christians. Yeah, that's what the G-men were. They were Republican Christians who would go after communists, socialists. Like, that's what the FBI started as. It was about the Red Scare. And no, but that's who they are. No, Drew, you're so low information. The FBI is still predominantly white Christian males.
How do you know that? Because I looked it up. I tried to look. I tried to, and I couldn't find it. I tried to because I wanted to know if there was any.
What'd you search?
A political affiliation with FBI employees.
Okay, well, I can just tell you the ones I know. So Christopher Wray, currently the FBI director, he was a registered Republican. Andrew McCabe, registered Republican. James Comey, registered Republican. Robert Mueller, registered Republican. I have no idea about Thomas Pickard or Louis Freeh before that. So from 2001 until now, the FBI has been led by Republicans.
Okay, I don't even like the Republicans, to be honest with you.
Well, I know because some of them tell the truth about Trump, and that has really messed with you guys. Because Trump, who you should hate, that's the craziest thing. Like the person that you should be mad at is Trump. He destroyed your party. He destroyed conservatism. He's not a conservative. He's just a scam artist, which is why why everything is so confusing to MAGA people, is because Donald Trump is confusing. He makes no sense. He offers no real prescriptions. He just whines about stuff. And he completely hijacked your party and turned you all into like sniveling little whiners. I'm old enough to remember when I was a Republican and we called the left snowflakes. And then I left and all my friends turned into snowflakes.
I don't know. I don't know. This case, look, I look at it, and this is going to sound, and I know you guys are going to attack me on it, but all right. So I own a business now, but I owned a business a long time ago that was considerably successful. And I thought I had the greatest accountant in the world, right? Greatest. He had all these ways. He was telling me, you do this, you do that, and you don't got to do, and he was, as the professional, I was allowing him to do these things. It was tax shelters and things like that. But he didn't come out and tell me that some of this stuff was like. Now that I'm looking back, I never got in trouble for anything. But now looking back, like most likely a lot of the stuff that he did was illegal. If somebody
Now,
were to look into it.
yeah, the
But I
difference
didn't
there.
think of it at that time. I thought of it as loopholes. This guy's the
Wait, can
professional.
I?
He knows.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just need to. I have to just. I'm sorry. This is an interruption, but I just want to just say a sentence before we move on to Drew's. How he got defrauded by his accountant. I just want to direct everyone to a New York Times article called "Trump is Going After One of the Most Conservative Institutions in the U.S. Government." Historically, though, the FBI has been arguably the most culturally conservative and traditionally white Christian institution in the entire U.S. government. Yeah, and it goes on and on and on. But
All
I
right.
just
Okay.
want to make the point that you guys shouldn't be attacking an institution that has historically propped you all up.
Not a Republican. But anyway, yeah. So back to that. And again, I didn't get ripped off. He saved me money in all different ways. Um, but
Well,
now looking
only
back,
if you just look at tax breaks, and just look at what you're like. If you don't apply what he did and see how it's affecting us now, then yeah, I understand why you're saying that. But if you're applying the laws that he put into place and see and look at the economic conditions, like those tax policies remain in place right now.
no,
So
what I'm
if he,
what I'm saying
oh,
is,
you're talking about the other guy. Sorry.
I'm saying, unbeknownst to me, most likely I was engaged. My company was engaging in illegal activity without me knowing, because I just took the advice of my CPA as gold, and he's gonna shelter me from these taxes, but it's all on the up and up.
Yeah.
And as I got older and wiser, I realized some of the things that he said that he did weren't.
But unfortunately for Donald Trump, both his CFO, Alan Weiselberg, his children, who were his closest business associates, and Michael Cohen have all testified that Trump had firsthand knowledge of literally everything they did. That's the problem he's got for him. He can't use that defense. His CFO is in prison. His CFO just got 5 more years for lying again during Trump's last trial. He lied for Trump in his last trial and got 5 more years. Yeah, like they've already
And they did
testified
all
that he knew.
testify to the same thing. Like Eric Trump was like, I don't even know what's going on. I don't work here. Like my
I'm
dad
just out
makes
pouring
all the
concrete.
decisions. They all, in their own way, said the truth, which is nothing happens without him. Like I'm not in charge of anything.
Yeah, I'm just saying, in my situation, I was young, I was 30, and everything sounded great. Everything he told me, I'm like, yeah, I'm on board with that, because it was like saving me money, But I didn't, he also didn't tell me that there was legal ramifications if anything ever happened.
What
And
did
I
you
just
learn
don't
from
know, and I'm just playing devil's advocate that perhaps you always claim that Trump isn't as bright as he seems to be, or
Okay,
tries to make himself out to be, is a better way to put it.
They've already covered this in other cases. There's no perhaps. They've already testified that he knew everything. Like you're now inventing a story that's already been adjudicated in court. Like that it's not
What
that's
do you mean?
it's not a defense. Everybody has already testified that that's not true
Then why didn't he get charged when these other people got charged?
because he was the sitting president and he had an attorney general named Bill Barr who publicly and repeatedly said you cannot charge the sitting president with a crime.
Well, yeah, right. Because that's just commonplace, right? It's not a
Well,
law or
it's
anything. That's what they've always done, right?
Yeah, it's a gray area. But the attorney general was the person who would have basically brought those charges. He was in charge of that. And if you were at the beginning, one of the clips police
No,
played,
I
like,
was.
yeah, they laid out from the beginning uh, how Donald Trump went in and tried to get these charges all removed. He got documents changed. He had charges removed. He had wording changed, all in hopes that when he left office, he couldn't be charged with this crime. They tried to remove him out of these crimes with Michael Cohen so that he couldn't be charged when he got out. But unfortunately, that it didn't work.
They were gonna pardon. Bill Barr was trying to pardon Michael Cohen. So well, whatever. Bill Barr was trying to pardon Michael Cohen, so they couldn't then use that indictment or his conviction to just like they pardoned Michael Flynn, just like they pardoned Roger, same thing, so that they couldn't use Michael Cohen's conviction and the fact that they didn't take out individual one. He still is listed in that indictment as individual one that Cohen, was acting in concert with or whatever. And because of that, he could have been later brought up exactly what's happening now. Did Drew get a violation or did he just go away? I can't hear you at all.
Oh shit, I was muted. I didn't see one, so I don't think he got a violation unless it's just on his end. I do have a question for you. Why did the chicken go to the seance?
No, I got a phone call, and I didn't want it to echo, so I jumped down and then.
Oh, you're good. Let me read a couple comments.
Why didn't the chicken go to the seance?
Why
or
did
what did
they?
you say?
Why did the
Why
chicken?
did the chicken?
Yeah.
Because Santeria? Why?
To get to the other side.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah,
The
that's the thing.
afterlife.
Well done. That's Leah.
Spiritual chickens.
Drew, I'm glad you're back for this. This is from Wasn't Me. For when Drew talks, I hear banjos.
That's
kind of mean.
It's from Long Island. They don't have banjos.
All right, this is from Sue. It's 1859. You two are traveling in covered wagons from the eastern United States to Colorado to pan for gold. You hire the
Oregon
only
Trail.
available hands remaining to help with your trip: Mitt Romney, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Matt Gaetz. What are each of their jobs in your little wagon train to Colorado? Look, I've seen Marge do CrossFit. She's the ox. She's pulling the wagon. I've seen her do CrossFit. She's got some great leg power. I'm going to send Matt Gaetz out ahead of the party, and Matt Gaetz is just going to go out and swindle people. I like the word swindle for the
Matt Gaetz can have the smallpox blankets and just go ahead and just, give them to like that's Matt Gaetz. If the guy with the smallpox blankets. That's who Matt Gaetz is.
He's out there
He's
just
the
with
guy with the smallpox blankets.
traveling apothecary. And Mitt Romney is riding in the covered wagon because I trust that he won't be too hard on Marge. He'll have her drive the wagon at a pace that won't be harmful to her.
He'd be a good leader of a wagon train, I feel like. You know what I mean? Except for, we all know the Mormons. The Mormons were nice to the indigenous folks they happened upon.
If he gets pulled over by indigenous folks, then he'll pretend that he's one of them. He'll act like he's one of them.
Exactly, and that's what the Mormons did. They dressed as indigenous people and massacred other people, and then and then the army would come and massacre the Indians they thought had massacred people, but really it was the Mormons.
When I went to school, high school and elementary school, there was no talk of the massacre of the Indians at all. None. I don't know if that's changed, how much that's changed.
So sad.
Well, good news. If you keep voting for Republicans, that still won't happen. Republicans would love to get that out of schools.
We ate corn with the Indians during Thanksgiving. That's as much as we learned about the Indians. I mean, we learned about the Indians and the different types of housing that they had and things like that and where they were located. But that's it. Nothing to do with the Indian Wars at all. Nothing.
Do you recognize on any level that the reason you didn't learn American history is because of conservatives, and it's still conservatives to this day trying to make sure that we don't teach actual American history, that we just deify our founding fathers and our history, that we only celebrate it and never analyze it and don't tell the truth about it. Like, your party's actually running on that, like the anti-DEI, the anti-CRT, the anti-woke. Like, a lot of that has to do with this idea that we're telling the true history of America. And conservatives are just very upset about that because they've already deified these men.
I'm against our government the way it stands now. I'm not. I'm really not.
Oh, well, what
I'm really not.
Talking points are Fox News talking points.
Well, would you consider yourself a progressive?
Trump-related only.
Are you progressive then?
No, I'm not a progressive. No, I mean, when I was younger and I knew.
Are you an abolitionist? Let me just be clear on this. Without, like, if you're a conservative,
I consider myself more of a libertarian.
Okay, well, depending on what type of libertarian you are, that would still be a conservative. If you want things mostly to stay the same, like then you're a conservative, right? If you want things to radically change or change at all, you're probably a progressive. Drew keeps getting kicked. I don't know what's going on.
He was saying the I word and annoying people.
That's true.
That's what I'm saying. He might have been reported. But I don't. I mean, that's not. You can't get reported. It couldn't be.
There we go. Hey, Steve. Sorry about yesterday. I was just teasing with you.
No, what's going on, guys?
Just kidding.
This is a long. I'm just gonna give some background on why that keeps happening to Steve. On Friday, we were on Jeff's live, and we kept trying to have a good faith conversation with Steve, and he just kept being. I don't know what he wouldn't talk about anything serious. Like he
No.
accused Jay of not having a study that Jay had. We'd already gone through on our show like multiple times, and so Jay goes and finds the study to go through it, and instead he just continually tries to like mock us and be sarcastic because he did not want to hear anything about what he asked to hear about. Is that fair? I mean, that's
Yeah,
what
like
happened, right?
I'm gonna be honest. I respect Steve's troll game. He's good at being a troll. I just don't want to talk to a troll. Like I no disrespect to you, Steve. Like you've got your thing.
100%.
You like being online to troll people. I appreciate that. I think it's probably I'd probably find it funny if you did it to someone else. But I just don't have any interest in talking to just a troll. So that's why. But
Well, and me,
God
you know
bless you,
me, I
Steve.
just want to have good faith conversations, like 100%. Like I just want to talk to people that want to genuinely just talk about politics. So I get it, but and I rarely see you like
Yeah.
done, but I mean I get it.
Well, it was so confusing. The whole time talking to him, it was like 15 minutes of just confusion. I had no idea what was going on. So I know
Oh,
my
and Jeff
mic's.
was like spastically saying over and over, "Well, he debunks the left, but also the right." It's like, Jeff, please, aren't you in another live right now while talking to us?
Are we,
Like, please, just don't talk.
are we doing Friday nights with Jeff now, or is that
That
a thing?
maybe. I don't know. You have to ask him to go steady.
I'm not looking for that type of commitment. Uh, let's see. Sorry, I
Guys,
see
tap
Digital
the screen.
Sister
Let's
just.
get to 260K. Tap, tap, tap. Do you want to hear the end or the stuff about this, like the Rachel Maddow stuff about, or is anyone in the box about the National Enquirer?
I don't think there's opposition in the box. I see Digital Sister in the box, but I don't think
And the
that's
history
opposition.
of that, because it is very interesting, like what we were talking about, how the prosecution is probably going to introduce this history of Trump planting stories
Yeah,
against Hillary and stuff.
let's finish
And
that.
Ted Cruz, I think they talk about the Ted Cruz one that you mentioned. The Ted Cruz,
The
what was
Inquirer
it again?
story
Ted Cruz's dad like killed
was
JFK
like
or
in on the
something
JFK
insane.
assassination. Yeah, that was during the I. That
Yeah,
was and that was like polling was close in Iowa, and so Trump planted that story, and Cruz still
it's
won.
crazy.
And then just a reminder that after Cruz won that story or that election in Iowa or the primary, excuse me, Trump went all over the media and said that it was stolen, that like the
Yeah,
vote count was wrong. Like he from the very first primary, Donald Trump was an election denier. Just
yeah,
always,
because he
always has
can't
been.
stand losing. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. People don't realize like it wasn't just the 2020 election. Trump has been like narcissists cannot lose, right? It's the confabulation thing. They believe they're God. Gods can't lose. Gods
yeah.
are all powerful, so they have to confabulate. The only thing that makes sense if you truly believed you're a god is, oh no, it's got to be rigged. Something has to be wrong because I'm God. Of
That's a
course people would vote for God.
Yeah, Darlene Kiki. He said it about the Emmys too. That's right. The Emmys were rigged. Everything's rigged.
Oh yeah.
Everything. The one time
The
when his
Emmys.
casino was bleeding money, he pretended that the slot machines were rigged, like somebody
Did
had hacked.
he?
Yeah, do you not know that story?
No, I did not know that
Yeah,
story, but I'm not surprised by that.
he took. There
And
was this.
that's is it ironic that Trump was rigging machines and now likes to
Yeah,
just cry that machines are rigged, and he was an original person rigging machines? Like everything Trump has ever accused someone of is an actual projection of a crime that he committed. Literally, if you anytime I hear Trump accusing someone of something, I'm like, oh, that must be another crime Trump did.
yeah, yeah. That's honestly,
Okay, let's listen.
if you would have just listened to like with hindsight, if you would have just went through the Trump presidency and just whatever he accused anybody of, you just assumed that he did that and then you started an investigation, which I'm not advocating that that would be illegal. I think most of the time you would find the crime.
I mean, that's what's happened. And like, I think you said it, like, the more time that goes by, the more crimes, the more confirmation of lies, that we see, right? Like, like in the moment you can't always see like the web of lies and crimes, but every minute, every day that goes by, it becomes clear. Oh, I missed you so much, Drew. Thank God you're back.
He was changing his voter registration. That's what I heard.
Yeah, so I would consider myself more of a libertarian.
That was funny, Jay. You made me laugh genuinely.
Thank you.
That's one.
Yeah, but what do you mean? So I'm also a libertarian, but I don't think we probably think that libertarian means the same thing.
Okay, so basically, a libertarian is fiscally conservative to a certain degree, but also socially liberal. I
There
can't.
are left-leaning libertarians and right-leaning libertarians, like Noam Chomsky. Like he's like the
Right,
left
but in my
libertarian.
case-
Like you're muted, Jay. No, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, they wouldn't be fiscally conservative. Libertarians are not fiscally conservative. They are fiscally responsible. There's a
Responsible.
difference.
Okay, that's a better way to
Fiscal
put it.
conservatism is spend a lot and lower taxes and explode the deficit. Fiscal conservatism is expanding the deficit.
That's what it turned out to be. I don't think that's what it initially was intended to mean, but that's what it's turned out to be.
Well, conservatism means to stay the same, right? So there's this thing that conservatives have done where they call fiscal conservatism like fiscal responsibility, but it's not. Like fiscal responsibility is different than fiscal conservatism.
More fiscally responsible,
Yeah.
and socially liberal. You know,
Okay, so then hear me out. If you want to be
I'm a step
fiscally
away from liberal. I know.
no, you are a liberal, but you just like you are just like a white dude who's been a Republican. I used to be you,
I haven't
and
been
it's
a Republican.
well, listen, whatever you want to call yourself, you're a Republican. Whatever
I think
you
it's
wanna call
hard to
yourself.
fit. I think what it is it's hard for Drew to fit in with his buddies unless he supports Trump a little. You know what I'm saying? Like Drew's from Long Island. It's hard. It's a tough crowd for Drew at the bar on the weekends unless he's a little for Trump.
Did she kind of nail that though, Drew? Did she kind of nail that?
No, not at all. Not at all. No.
Yeah, right.
No, listen.
your
I have very liberal friends, extremely liberal friends, and I have extremely MAGA crazy, beard guzzling guys. Like I have a
So I was
pretty
right.
fair mix of both.
Just the way
I
you
think
described
that
your two groups of friends. One of them sounds enjoyable, and one of them sounds like they're going to get me arrested.
one of
Like
them I
even
stay
just the
away
way
from.
you describe your own circle of friends. It's like I
One
have
of
these
them I
liberal
have-
friends, they're great, and I got these like degenerate drunks that are
More
all
or less,
MAGA.
more or less.
They can't
Yeah,
read.
I
have
don't hang
that
out with
part.
anymore because I changed my life.
Yeah.
But what was I saying? So, like I said, and I've said this a million times before.
I will say,
like,
when I used to drink, I haven't drank for like 4 years, but when I used to drink, I had more Republican friends too. I will say, you gotta drink. You know what I mean? You find more Republicans when you drink.
Gonna be a little drunk. Yeah, so
It's the only way it makes sense.
I'm more against, and I come up here and argue these arguments, and I always try to bring it to how the whole system is corrupt and how, both left and right are both basically full of shit.
But it's
But
not.
they are full of shit.
No, it's not. Give me an example of how the system is corrupt. Just one example.
All right, so you guys complain about taxes, Trump's tax breaks, and all these things that Republicans do, and then when you guys are in power, you do nothing. You do nothing to correct them.
That was
Even
not,
when you have
that wasn't even remotely an answer. Hey,
the
Drew, that
Senate
wasn't
and
even
the
remotely an answer to what I said. The question I asked is, show me a way that the system is rigged.
Okay, I'll give you a lot of different things. So,
Okay.
the majority of the bills that are passed, I think it's from Occupied Democrats. I think it's like 85% actually benefit corporations, and 15% benefit the citizens.
Okay,
So the whole system is
now we're talking. So what should we do to fix that?
Drew's a liberal.
We should get money out of politics. Number one, change Citizens United, overturn Citizens United.
And who opposes that? Who opposes the ending of Citizens United?
I'm not a because you keep on
Leonard
making
Leo,
Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
Clarence Thomas.
Donald Trump would not be able to pay his attorneys without Citizens United, my friend. Donald Trump opposes that.
That's the system that we're in right now. We need to
He
get past
opposes
that.
the system. No, he
We need to
wants to
blow it
keep
up.
the system we're in the same. He wants Citizens United. He desperately needs it. He would be in jail without it, like legitimately in jail because he doesn't have the money to pay to keep himself out of jail. Citizens United is single-handedly keeping this man from being behind prison bars right now. How is this the guy you're voting for?
Because I want the whole country to blow up. That's why
He's not going to blow the whole
system
country
to
up.
blow up.
He didn't do it the first time. He had 4 years, and you know what
had
he did?
4 more
He
years
kept
to do it.
everything. He kept everything the same, and then made the
Got
the
sidetracked with
Justice
COVID, or
Department
else he was on his way
worse.
to blow everything up.
What, blowing it up, but his way of blowing it up is fascism, my friend. You want to be you want to go through a period of fascism?
Not what he wants to do. In other words,
the people paying him want fascism.
It's like the
my
guy
friend.
that we talked to yesterday, I think is what Drew's the accelerationist, who was basically saying by Trump getting into power and trying to do all this Christian nationalist crazy stuff, like it's going to inflame other people to the point where essentially the country will implode. It will hasten, the end or something.
It's a weird argument because you're
instead of the status quo that we've had forever and nothing changes. Nothing changes.
Then vote for progressives.
From one side to the other, nothing.
Then vote for
changes.
progressives. Drew.
It doesn't matter. They don't. They don't change anything.
Drew, you are right that nothing changes.
Everybody else.
Well, you need more progressives.
You need real progressives. You need people that haven't been
so vote for real progressives
for 35
and
years.
don't spend all like Republicans. Maybe the reason they spend so much time hammering people like Katie Porter and Ilhan Omar and AOC is because those are real progressives. Those are people who can drive radical change. And the Republicans are terrified of that, so they smear like these congresswomen. Maybe that's why they smear them. The people that are, if you want Citizens United ended, if that's your major, that was the first thing you brought up. You should love AOC. You should love Ilhan Omar. You should love Katie Porter. You should love Dan Goldman.
In 2016, if 2016, if they didn't knock Bernie out, I was going to vote for Bernie. What do you think of that?
And now you're voting for Trump. That makes no sense.
No, because I'm voting for the outsider.
Many libertarians were in the tank for Bernie. Yeah, no, that's true. There were many, like, if you were far right or far left, I think both sides were on board with some Bernie.
Brother, you said you want an outsider? He was the goddamn president of the United States. He's as inside as he gets. His family is running the whole Republican Party now. This is the most insider. This is the most insider of inside people you could possibly vote for. And he's voting and he's running so that he can pardon himself. This is the swampiest swamp creature of all time.
You really think that Republicans, true Republicans that have been in office for as long as they have, really like Trump, or it's just because
but they do what he says.
Well, they have to.
And then what happens? You know what they were able to do? They were like, "Hey, Donald, we'll give you some of these things that you want, but you got to give us the stuff that we want." And he's like, "Okay, cool.
Yeah,
like, we'll give you money. We'll give you money. We'll give you money, and you just give us, I don't know, 3 judges who will overturn Roe v. Wade." And he's like, "Yeah, that's cool." And they're like, "By the way, all these other judges who you don't know because you were an outsider, here's a list of people that you can choose from." And then he chose from a list that they gave him. Not only is he the ultimate insider, he's also stupid, and he also doesn't care. And so we have no idea who's actually making these decisions. He doesn't care about any of this. So what you're talking about, like, I want to blow it up, he's not going to blow it up. He's going to put in Project 2025, and then you're going to have fascism.
Yeah, and it's like really, I was talking with Nemo about this last night for a long time. Like, it was all over, like when Mitch McConnell, all of that stuff, Trump is just the useful idiot. Just like if MAGA really understood in Russian state media that they call Trump a useful idiot, they call people in MAGA a useful idiots. Like that's what Mitch McConnell saw him as. Like when Mitch McConnell said F you to Obama and refused to seat a Supreme Court justice, that was when Roe v. Wade was overturned. Like, you want to talk about an intelligent person playing the long game, who waited for 8 years or whatever it was, sitting there knowing it was coming. That's literally Leo and Mitch McConnell. Trump is a prop, not an agitator, not a disruptor.
Right. No, I know. And listen, I don't agree with Roe v. Wade being overturned. I don't at all. I'll argue that point sometimes if I feel like arguing, but I really don't believe in it.
Then it
I
must piss you off how Trump's doing the like taking credit for it because he's ruining his own campaign. Don't you? Do you agree with that?
agree. I think the worst. I think the what hurts him the worst is the Roe v. Wade thing, by far, much worse than any of these indictments or anything. Is Roe v. Wade,
Like,
without a doubt.
like there doesn't seem.
But Biden's not looking good on a lot of fronts either. Honestly,
Where's Biden not looking good?
he's not looking good on foreign affairs. And I'm not saying that we can't explain it all, because we can. But what I'm saying is most people aren't as informed. Like, I'm not very informed compared to you guys, but I'm more informed than probably 75% of everybody else, because most people are
That's
are
true.
informed zero. So they just look at things on the surface, and they're going to see the mess in the Middle East. Biden's in office.
Yeah,
Biden
but I'm
plus the mess
asking
in the
you.
Middle
I'm not
East
asking about
not
them.
good.
I'm asking you to tell me where Biden's screwing up.
No, I'm not. I'm telling you the perception. I'm not. Look, I
No,
know.
but I want to know your opinion. I already know that there's. I
All
talk
right,
to dumb Republicans all
I
the
think
time. I don't want more of them. I want more of your opinion.
when it comes to foreign relations, I think he's too wishy-washy.
Like what?
I think he tries to appease everyone and ends up not and having like an indifferent opinion.
So
Look,
what would you have
let's
done
use
differently?
Israel. Let's look at Israel.
Yeah.
He has
What
a
would you have
dilemma.
done differently in Israel?
Well, I'm telling. All right. Well, I'll go through what I think he did, and I'll think he needs to take a side on this, or he needs
He
to
did.
be
He
very.
said he sides with Israel.
He says that, but then he talks about, and then he has to pander to the left with the ceasefires and everything, which I'm in agreement with. By the way, I'm not such a pro.
Wait, why does that have to, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, that's fair. We can call it pandering or whatever, but you agree with it. So, like, what's the problem here?
I'm not saying there's a problem. I'm saying I'm telling you. So you're saying for me, I think that he should
Yeah.
be more. I think he should be more firm on his beliefs. Like, if he really believes, he should stand up to Israel. All right. If he really believes that there's that there's a genocide, which I believe there is too, I think probably shouldn't use that word.
Yeah, careful with that.
I
Thanks.
think he should be a lot tougher with Netanyahu, and start using some leverage, like the money that we give them and the weapons that we give them, and start saying things like, "Listen, we were behind you, but now we're not behind you anymore because now it's getting out of hand." And be firm about it, as opposed
Well,
to
help me understand this
in the
then.
middle
Help me
of the
understand.
road.
I think that's all fair criticism, but then
I
help
think
me
he does that. I
understand.
think that he does that with
Hold
Iran
on,
too. I think that
Drew, hold on.
Tap the screen, guys.
Help me understand then. I know your position with the ceasefire. I know you think I think it's a fair criticism of Joe Biden to say like that he should advocate for the ceasefire more aggressively. I agree with that, but of course I'm going to ask the question then. In every one of these scenarios you've brought up so far, you're like, I'm not a Republican, I'm a libertarian. You keep siding with the left, and then I ask you, well, okay, so now you're going to vote for a guy who wants to accelerate aggression. He wants the opposite of a ceasefire. The confusing part for me is every time you tell me what you believe, you still walk away saying you're going to vote for Trump, and it makes me feel like you're not being entirely honest.
all right, no. So in Trump's case, okay, and this is gonna be, you just gotta go with me on this a little bit, all right? So I believe Trump is a complete narcissist, right? And he thinks he's the best businessman in the world, and he's the best negotiator in the world, right? So I think his first step, being where he came from, is going to try to be diplomatic and try to sit down with the parties at hand and try to hammer out a deal.
Then why didn't he do that when he was president, Drew? Why are you giving him this benefit of the doubt that like maybe when he becomes president he'll suddenly be totally different than the person he was for 4 years?
He was
had
more
4
diplomatic
years.
as opposed
This
to-
stuff with Israel and Palestine has been going on for decades. He had 4 years. He didn't do anything but make things worse. In fact, when he finally came with a peace agreement, he didn't bring Palestine to the table. He just said Israel and 4 other partners signed this agreement that we're all on the same team and we're going to gang up against Palestine.
Yeah, because Palestine is run by Hamas.
Dude, like I'm just being honest. Like I'm trying to be fair to you, but I think one of 2 things is true. Either you have like this affinity. Have you heard? There's Bill Burr did like when he was on Joe Rogan, they were talking about the COVID vaccines, but he used an analogy that was really good. He's like, it's kind of like rollerblades. Like when we first got rollerblades, everybody was using rollerblades, and then there was one homophobic joke, and everybody stopped using rollerblades. I feel like that's you in the Republican Party, but you haven't like ditched your rollerblades yet. You recognize that this isn't something that you're part of. You recognize that it sucks, but like you're not willing to be you're just afraid to be like a Biden person. You've spent so much time hating these people and believing they're the enemy. And believe me, I've been where you're at, but everything you're saying doesn't line up with where you're voting. And that is bizarre to me.
It's
like
a bizarre.
You recognize that that the
it's a bizarre
Republicans are not
because,
you.
Because my voting record, for the most part, aside from Trump, has been pretty much all Democrats. I hated Bush, both Bushes, and that's when I really started like paying a little bit of attention to politics. I liked Bill Clinton a lot, even the dirtiness. I'll be honest.
We know that. You probably
I was
loved
younger
him.
then.
Yeah, we
Who
see
doesn't like
now.
a cigar
Trump.
thing I
Same
thought
thing
was
you like
hysterical.
about Trump.
And then Obama. I loved Obama the first time. Then I didn't vote the second time at all because Obama, I felt like, went back on his word with transparency and all the things that I thought were wrong with politics.
But then you vote for the opposite. This is again like, dude, you keep reverting back to this like these stories. You don't agree with Donald Trump about fucking anything. You've already agreed that he's a danger to women, that he weaponizes the Department of Justice. You can't point to anything that's been unfair about him, and yet you're going to vote for him. And every time I ask you to explain why you're voting for him, you tell me about how you used to be more reasonable. Like,
No.
it makes no sense. What's one reason you're going to vote for him? What's one thing
I was just explaining that I felt like when it comes to now, especially now with the Middle East being the way it is and the war in attempt.
No, he said he's going to accelerate it. He said finish the job.
He told Bibi to wrap it up. In other words, it's enough now.
He said finish the job.
Like what happened was when they were all quartered in Rafah, and Netanyahu had started talking about, oh, now it's time. Like he had them cornered in there, all the civilians, and then he starts talking about now we're doing a military operation in Rafah, and the crossing is closed, the gate is locked. And that's when Biden started instructing Anthony Blinken, who's a war dog, to shut up, and John Kirby, and turn it around and start saying, like, this is not okay. You're not going into Rafah with all those civilians there and doing a military operation. And Trump's response to that was Biden's weak, right? And we need to finish the job. But at the same time, Trump, like you're saying, it's very true that Trump's a narcissist and actually has no position, because then on Saturday in Pennsylvania at his rally, he's got the crowd chanting G-side Joe, like, and which he's not, right? And then in a couple weeks ago, he's making fun of him for being weak and not finishing off the civilians in Rafah. Like, that's the irony of Donald Trump. He stands for nothing. Like, you said you hated Bush. I just want to make a point. John Bolton, right? George W. Bush, who was, you could say he's a warmonger, you could say Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld were running the country while George W. Bush was at his ranch confused.
Right.
Okay, but I'm saying George W. Bush said, oh no, not John Bolton. This guy is insane. Yeah. When I go into meetings with him, he keeps threatening other countries with nukes. Like, we can't have this guy. He's a nutcase. Then, when Trump gets into office, hires John Bolton, and John Bolton now says, I can't work with Trump. That man is insane. So, and in terms of just unhinged in meetings, threatening people with nukes. So I'm just saying, you want to be like, oh, George W. or whoever was in charge of that administration is a warmonger. These are people, the people from the George W. Bush administration. Dick Cheney has made ads about it saying, no, we might have been crazy. Donald Trump is the insane one. We would not even do what he's done. So you can't use some
Well,
examples.
I think, and again, this isn't like a positive thing towards Trump. It's just an explanation.
Here we go. Another thing that you don't agree with for Trump, and you're still going to vote for him. Drew.
So when he first got into office, he had no experience in politics. And I
Great
think
reason to hire somebody to be president. No fucking experience.
I think he picked a lot of people that he saw on Fox News. Like, I think that's what I think that's more or less what he did. Because John Bolton was absolutely the worst choice, I thought, for him to pick, because I've always hated that guy. I always hate.
No, Trump said that he put him in there for the same reason. Like, what John Bolton is good at is acting crazy. Like, he would bring John Bolton into meetings with other countries to scare the shit out of other countries and be like, see this unhinged guy who knows what we're capable of.
Right. Right, and listen. If that's the strategy, and it worked in the time while his time was in office, then as long as you can keep as long as
I'm making the point that people from George W. Bush's administration all say the same story, that Trump is absolutely out of his mind.
Yeah.
Hey, Drew, do you know what poisoning the well is? Have you heard that term before?
Sure.
Okay. You are a byproduct, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, so please hear me out. You are a byproduct of poisoning the well. What Donald Trump does is he attacks anybody who ever disagrees with them, and he makes them look bad, right? So when it boils down to all these people who are testifying against Trump, he's poisoned the well for you. I hate John Bolton.
No, but
I honestly, Drew, full disclosure, I don't think you could tell me one thing John Bolton ever did before Donald Trump was president. Can you tell me one thing he did before Donald Trump was president?
I could tell you about his talking points on Fox News, and
I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about what.
All I know about him is basically his rhetoric on Fox News about and always being all about war.
What was his job in the Trump administration?
He was I don't know.
See,
I don't know.
So this is an example, Drew, of what we call poisoning the well. What they do when somebody leaves the Trump orbit and attacks Donald Trump or says something bad about Donald Trump, they smear him. So that's what you have in John Bolton. You know that John Bolton is a warmonger, and that he worked with the Bush administration, but that's really actually all you know. You don't know anything about what like Felice is telling you things. Felice is telling Felice is telling you things about John Bolton that he's saying that have been verified by other people. And you're just like, well, I hate him. And every single person we bring up, you're just like, well, the well has already been poisoned. You have been conditioned, Drew. Like, this is how the programming works. The reason you can't leave Trump is he has made you hate every person who's ever said a bad word about him. And so you feel like there's nowhere else to go. And you're like, well, Trump's bad, they're all bad, but I'm already over here. I'm going to stay here. And that is 100% by design. I don't think you could point to a person who's been openly critical of Trump who you really like. You had a phone call or something?
You're muted, Drew.
No, I know I was. Somebody here. I have my landscaper here. Give me an estimate.
Did you hear anything I said or no?
I can absolutely nothing you said. I was talking to the landscaper.
Okay, all right. Poisoning the well. Every single person that's ever spoke out about Donald Trump attacks publicly. He smears them. He tries to tie them to something you'll hate, whether it be liberals, whether it be wokeism, whether it be George Bush, whether it be the Democrats, whether it be George Soros, whether it be climate change, whatever. Every single person who ever speaks out against him, he smears. So what you're left with, Drew, and the reason that you feel like you want to blow the whole thing up is you recognize Donald Trump is trash. You recognize that. But he has smeared everybody else. He has taken your opinion of everybody else and made it negative. So you feel like there's nobody that's good in the government. You've lost the ability to have nuance. So to you, it's like this whole thing's a clusterfuck. We got to blow it up. But until then, I'll just stick with Trump because I'm comfortable here. But the truth is, you don't know why you hate all of these people. You've been conditioned, and it happens. It happened to me. It happens to everybody. We get conditioned. We hear something from somebody we trust, or we hear something that sounds right, and we just believe it. But again, you don't know what John Bolton did. You don't know what his role was. You can't tell me one thing he did specifically that you don't like, but you said, I hate him.
I hate him for his rhetoric, for whatever I heard him say.
What rhetoric?
I never liked what he had to say. No, I'm talking about on like Fox News. Whenever he was,
Yeah, what did he
whenever
say?
he was up on the, he would always be pro-war. It was always about actively getting involved in war and
Like when?
not letting. Uh, whenever he was on
What
Fox News,
specifically? What war did he advocate getting in that you remember?
I know he was always tough on Iran. Always tough on Iran.
So was
Um,
Trump.
what's that?
Yeah, listen.
Shouldn't that
I
be a
mean,
good
can
thing
we
for you?
No, it's not a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say.
No, look,
Yeah.
I don't want.
But
I don't want to
do
get
you,
involved.
okay,
In war.
instead of going through John Bolton, do you at least recognize that Donald Trump poisons the well with everybody? There is no place for you to go.
Anybody, I just said he was a narcissist. So yeah.
Okay, but
of
who do
course.
you like that has been openly
Anybody
critical
that
of him?
doesn't-
Who
What's
do
that?
who do you really like that is regularly critical of him
Who do I like?
in politics? Somebody that works in politics that's regularly critical of him.
Now nobody is, except for the left. On the left,
Wait, Mitt Romney is critical of him. What about Liz Cheney? What about John Bolton? What about Bill Barr?
Yeah, they're all critical of him now.
Yeah, do you like any of those people?
I don't have any problem with Bill Barr. I don't have any problem with Liz Cheney.
So why don't you believe them when they say he's a danger to democracy?
I don't know.
What did either of those two have to gain from coming out against Donald Trump? They both lost their careers, and they both knew they would lose their careers. What did they have to gain? What's their incentive to come out against Donald Trump? Liz Cheney voted with him more than anybody else in Congress. What was her incentive?
I don't have enough knowledge of what the backstory is of what happened
Liz
first.
Cheney is like Mitch McConnell. She voted with Trump. I mean, that's Mitch McConnell is dangerous because he can take all emotions out of it and continue furthering an agenda he's had for years, even in the face of Trump attacking his wife, everything Trump's done to Mitch McConnell. And Liz Cheney was the same way. Matched Trump vote for vote. I mean, they were lockstep with him, literally. And that's the point. Like, John Bolton is a guy, just so you know, I mean, he was the assistant attorney general for Reagan. This is a guy who grew up under the Reagan administration. He was a warmonger. He was slanging arms like during the Bush administration. And that was one of his jobs essentially. I mean, they were arms dealers, and John Bolton was very much involved in that and wanted to deal arms to both sides. And like in many cases in the Middle East, was a proponent of the Iraq War, and that's what John Bolton is saying. These are people that there was no line. These are Donald Trump's the same. He supported all the stress positions, the torture tactics. Why can't all the things that went on in Abu Ghraib? These people that are okay with all of it. Liz Cheney is one of those people. And they are saying this man is a danger to our country. We are unhinged people that have no ethics, morals, or scruples. And we're telling you that this man is dangerous.
I'll end with this.
And
This
you're
is
just like,
no. My thought process may not be the same as yours. It's definitely not. So when I say that everything, when I say the government's completely corrupt in all ways, I'll get a little more detailed in why I think that Trump could be effective in a way. I think that our spy agencies have basically taken over our country. That most of the stuff that we do overseas is a result of our spy agencies involving themselves in things that we don't need to be involved in, and doing a lot of things that we end up with blowback about. I mean, look at Iran. Iran only got radicalized because we installed the Shah, and we were involved in the coup in, what was it, 1953?
it goes so much farther back than that. But okay, Drew, whatever you first heard about Iran.
Okay, well,
Drew, you're not saying anything. To be honest with you,
No,
you're just
I am, and
you're just pointing. You're pointing at things that I think you like having your opinion heard, but your opinion doesn't mean anything. I don't even think you have an opinion. You just keep saying things that like kind of exist. You don't tie them to a point. You don't tie them to why you're voting for Trump. Like all of these things you just complain about, and this is the Trump playbook. You complain about a bunch of shit that everybody else does, and you advocate no real changes yourself.
Like any of the other Trumpers on here. Don't try to defend him. I defend him in a way.
I'm talking about you, Drew.
That's almost not. It's definitely not complimentary of him. What I'm saying is
no, I think it's a little cowardly if we're being honest, because you won't admit
It's
to
not
anything that
cowardly.
well, let me explain why. Because you
I'm just not. I just don't concede to all the points of any particular party, and my position is of an outsider. And I
it's
don't
not.
play
I
the
don't think
party
you have a
line like you
position,
do.
to be
I mean,
honest.
you
I don't
literally
think you
play the
hold any
party line about
positions.
every single issue.
I don't think you hold any positions because you don't vote according to your positions. You vote the exact opposite of every position you've laid out today.
I'm only voting for Trump based on
I know.
that. And the
Yeah,
only reason why is I
they-
think that he might have the ability to change some of the inner workings of our spy agencies that have definitely gone amok, definitely under Bush for the most part, and it's only been perpetuated since then.
yeah.
No,
And
Let's
because
bring in
if
a
you knew what happened
criminal
in
to do
Trump's
that.
first term, it's that he literally stopped using our what you're calling our spy agencies, right? He literally almost decommissioned the CIA. He hired private
And that's a bad
security
thing?
firm. Drew, just listen and learn something, because you don't. That point doesn't even make sense. He already did that in his first 4 years. He literally decommissioned the CIA and started using private security firms like he did in Venezuela. That's what he did. He wanted people more loyal to him that he could control and do shadier things with. That's already happened. He
Do
uses
shadier
private
things than the
security
CIA.
firms.
Do say shadier things than the CIA does.
Yes,
Yes,
because
Drew,
at least with this,
it's an agency that can be
Why do you
employed or
think
not employed.
why do you
Trump
think
used
Ukraine
private security firms to do what the CIA usually does.
Drew,
why do
the
you think Ukraine
CIA,
and Russia are at war?
Drew, hold on. The CIA, at least, at the very least, has oversight. Now, we can argue whether or not that oversight is effective, but there is no oversight with private security firms, which is why they use them, so that they can hide things from the American people.
There's no oversight.
He
with
did
CIA.
worse.
They have
He
black
took what we
operations
had
that
and chose a
nobody
worse,
knows anything about.
more corrupt option.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to say, Drew. The problem isn't the CIA anymore. He didn't trust the CIA. He thought they were watching him and he didn't like it. So he stopped using them. He
I can't
doesn't
believe
use
I'm
them
talking to
anymore.
liberals that are advocating for the CIA for
No,
war.
what
No, we're
no,
not
Drew.
Drew, we're telling you what happened during Trump's first 4 years.
Drew, it's
because
like
you don't know that. So we're explaining to you the history of Trump's presidency.
It's like, Drew, if I said, "Do you want me to step on your toe or punch you in the face?" And you were like, "Step on my toe," and then I'm like, "I can't believe you're advocating for people who step on toes." No, we're comparing two things. The guy you're voting for, he's a worse option than our CIA as it currently stands. And this is where you need to somehow figure this
What's
out,
your
Drew.
opinion?
You've got to figure out a way to take your views and apply them to Donald Trump or any candidate that you vote for equally. Because again, Donald Trump was so afraid of the CIA because of the oversight that he hired private firms with no oversight. We have no idea what they were doing. He hired them instead, and you're like, that's what we need more of. A president who can do whatever they want.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, and then
Yeah.
I'll get off. So Trump was so bad; he's the worst ever. So we had 4 years of Trump, aside from
Yeah.
COVID, which anybody in hindsight could critique. What did
Yeah.
he do that was so detrimental to the country? Go ahead.
He exploded our national debt. He exploded deficit spending. He cut taxes and gave breaks to billionaires, which set the path that when COVID showed up, it exposed that our economic system is meant to funnel all the money to the top. He got rid of a 90-day exception rule where corporations could not buy houses within 90 days of them going on the market, giving the public first chance at buying those houses. He removed that, and then immediately corporations started buying up housing, which is why before he left office, we had a massive housing spike that continued through COVID. My house went up almost 4x during this time. Within 4 years, there's no way I could afford the house that I live in had I tried to buy it right then. He exploded the national debt. He exploded wealth inequality. He decimated our systems. He smeared every person in the federal government who dared to stand up to him. He was a
He
laughing
weaponized the
stock
DOJ.
across the world. And when I say laughing stock, I don't mean it like when you Republicans say it or the Biden haters say it and they're like, Joe Biden's a laughing stock. I mean, we have videos and audio of world leaders literally laughing at him. Not we're guessing that they were laughing, literally laughing at him. He went to Russia and he said, "Hey, I trust Vladimir Putin over our own agencies." He was the worst president of our lifetime economically, foreign policy. Yes, economically, it ended with COVID, which has decimated the middle class because of the structure that was set up that he did nothing about. In fact, exacerbated. It decimated our middle
Explain
class.
that more. Explain that more.
Okay, when you set up when the
25%
government
of the national debt.
yeah, 25% of the national debt happened under him. When you talk about the tax breaks that are given to the 1% specifically and the deregulation that he went through, it meant that billionaires kept more of their money, meaning we collected less tax revenue. And because those billionaires have more money, they spend it on things like houses. I just saw Jeff Bezos bought his third house in the same neighborhood. It's like Bunkerville. They're like all places that are supposed to be able to survive like a missile attack. Yeah, he has
Or
three
a French
houses
Revolution.
three houses in that neighborhood, all of them over $70 million. Do you think it is a good system when most of America can't afford or can't purchase a house, but this guy can buy three that are all over $70 million? No, the system's broken, and Donald Trump exacerbated that. And on top of all of that, while he was in office, before he was in office, and after he left office, all he did was break laws and try and get around our election system and try and overturn an election and make a mockery of our government, all while just committing fraud. Then he took a bunch of money, millions and millions of dollars, and his son-in-law billions of dollars from the people who funded 9/11. He is dog shit.
I was
He
talking
is
about the money that you said that he spent, the 20 he added 25% to the debt.
25%. No. 25% of our debt occurred under him. He didn't increase it
During
by
COVID?
25%.
Because I said aside from COVID.
He was
You
already
increased
outspending
the tax
Obama. Wait, Drew, shut the fuck up for a second. He was outspending Obama before COVID. He was already exploding our national debt before COVID happened.
In what ways?
If you cut
Drew,
taxes, Drew,
wait,
and
do you owe us
increase,
money for this
All you have to
education,
do-
Drew?
all you have to do
Honestly,
is say
you owe
taxes.
us. We can't
Drew.
explain to you life.
Yes, you can.
Where
You
were
guys
you
are-
during the
Yeah.
4 years? You voted for him. You have no
I
idea
come
what
up
even
here to learn.
happened, and you're
You guys should
preparing to
feel-
vote for him again. Drew, let's take away all the
might
moral
not-
stuff.
look,
We could talk
how about
about
this?
Roe v. Wade. We could talk about abortion and what he's done to women. Let's take all of that stuff away. Just the
I didn't vote
economic
for Trump
devastation.
last time.
He didn't add 25% to the national debt. He added of the total national debt, 25% was added during Trump. That
didn't
is
vote at
devastating.
all last
Drew, you have
time.
3 daughters. We may never recover from that. Like, your children may never recover from just 4 years of Trump. They never recover. That is the truth. That's the one true thing Nikki Haley said in those debates was our children will never forgive us. She wasn't talking about anything Trump did, just the economics of what he did to the national debt. That's it. And she's right.
And then Biden didn't spend a lot of money afterwards?
He did, but guess what? Deficit spending under Joe Biden has gone down because Democrats historically do a better job of offsetting new spending with taxes. So there have been taxes that have been added. And if you didn't have the Republicans standing in the way, like we could increase our taxes anyways. But Drew, it is the epitome of stupidity if you increase or cut taxes and increase spending. It's like if you owed like you had $300,000 of debt. Let's say you have a job making $120,000 a year, and you're like, I know what will fix this. I'm going to take a job making $60,000 a year. You would never do that. That would make no financial sense. But that is literally what Donald Trump did. He came in, he's like, let's add a whole bunch of spending and cut taxes. And you know what he's advocating for his next 4 years? Increasing spending and cutting taxes. The exact same thing.
Now, why didn't Biden do anything to fix any of these things? All these
Well,
talking points you guys have.
Well, it's
He
true.
has.
Biden
He
can't
has proposed
unilaterally change
a
that.
budget now. Yeah, and he has proposed a budget that's going to increase taxes not on the middle class, but on the rich. You should read Biden's budget proposal that he put out and look
But
into
why didn't
and
he do it
compare
this
it to
time?
Trump's. And
Why
you
did he
know
do?
that here's something that people don't know, a lot of people don't know. Every Trump's budget proposal every year had cuts to Social Security.
I didn't know that.
Like, but Trump now, what he campaigns on during election time, Trump says, "I'm never going to touch
Politician
Social
campaigns
Security.
on
I'm
bullshit.
never going to touch it." Right? Isn't that what he says?
Every
But
politician
that
campaigns.
when we're outside of election time, what Trump does is another thing.
That's every
Don't play.
politician.
Don't Drew. Stick with us here. Don't play whataboutism for a second. We're just examining Trump right now. Don't play. Don't
Okay.
play the whataboutism. Like
No, it's not.
what?
It's just showing that
You
all
did. You said
politicians.
every politician, every
They do.
Yeah. So that's called whataboutism, Drew.
Okay, I understand what it is, but it's
Well,
relevant
I don't know why whataboutism is relevant here.
because you're making it like he's doing something beyond what normal politicians have done in the past.
Has Joe Biden ever
as
had?
far as
Wait,
campaign
no,
promises
Drew,
is what I'm
Drew.
talking
No
Has
one
Joe
has
Biden,
ever added 25% of the total or of the total national debt been responsible for 25% of it. Do you understand that number and how many presidents there have been?
Drew, look at
Yeah, I
when Trump
understand,
came.
but
Look at when Trump came into office. What did Trump have when he came into office that Biden has never had?
what did he have when he came into office? When the Biden has never had a good economy.
Control of the House and the Senate, so he could
Okay,
pass things. Biden
right.
can't pass anything. This Congress has passed less legislation than any Congress in the history of the United States. They are the most ineffective Congress that we've ever had.
Agreed, because we're the most divided that we've ever been.
Yes, and who? Yeah. So when you say why didn't Joe Biden fix it, that's why, Drew. He can't.
You don't think
The
that
House won't allow anything. They asked him specific. They asked Democrats specifically for a border bill tied to the Ukraine funding. They're like, we'll do Ukraine if you do the border. So they gave him that bill, and they're like, fuck it. You want to
don't
talk about
think
open borders? That's you guys.
you don't
That's
think
you. That's why the
Dems are
border.
equal-
That's why
equally
we got
divisive?
problems at the borders right now. You guys don't want to fix it.
You don't think you guys are equally as divisive?
No, not even remotely close. Nobody has ever been more divisive in American
You guys
politics
come up here
than Donald Trump.
bash
Trump,
people
and it's not close. No, listen.
all
This
day.
is like somebody coming into you have a china shop and they start breaking all this shit, and you're like, you're only talking about that guy. It's like, yeah, everybody else is just walking around. He's breaking everything. The reason we cover Donald Trump so much is because every fucking day this guy commits a crime, it seems. Every day this guy says something insane. We cover him like this because he's a crazy person.
You've been covering him like this from
He's
day
been
one.
like he was a crazy person before he got into politics. In 2008, 2012, 2016, every time the Republicans lost an election, here comes Donald Trump. Oh, the election was stolen. They're cheating. Barack Obama's born in Kenya. He's always been a dumbass. You guys just weren't paying attention. He's always been this exact guy. He's always been a criminal. He's always been a liar. He's always been stupid. He's always been lazy. He's always been a con man. This is always who he's been. Stop pretending like when he came into office, we shouldn't have been critical. We had a lifetime of Donald Trump in the spotlight. We knew exactly who he was. You guys like, well, you didn't give him a chance. He's been on camera his whole life. We know exactly
He
who
was
he
a
is.
Democrat at one point. What if he ran as a Democrat? Would you think you guys would have
He
been
would
tough
not
on
have
him?
got. The reason he ran as a
Yeah.
Republican, according to himself, is because he knew he could win that nomination, and Democrats wouldn't vote for him.
Well, also his policies don't really coincide with liberals.
He doesn't have policies. He chose the Republicans because he could win there, and then adapted to their policies.
I think he's apolitical too. I don't think he really has.
Yeah,
So
he's
keep
God.
voting for that
He's
guy.
God. He doesn't lower himself for politics. It doesn't matter. He's above it.
Well, like I said, and again, I may not even vote again because I'm not. Look, it's not like you. I don't come off like this MAGA love everything that he does guy. Like I think I can see to a lot of your
I
points
think it's
because
worse.
a lot of times I don't know what it is. But no, I might not even vote. First of all, a vote in New York is for
Drew,
Donald
you're a
Trump.
liberal. Just own it. It's okay. We'll have
Not.
you.
I'm a libertarian. I don't like the wokeness too much.
You are not a
Well,
libertarian.
there's
Libertarians are
left-leaning
woke.
libertarians. Look up Noam Chomsky and what he like. There are left-leaning libertarians, very much so.
I'm far more libertarian than you are, Drew, and I'm as left as they come. But I'm far more libertarian than you. I don't think when you say I'm a libertarian, I don't like woke shit. That doesn't make any sense. Libertarians believe that the government should have no business telling people who they can and cannot marry, who they can and cannot identify as. A
They
libertarian would
support
not believe that.
polygamy.
Yeah, they would not believe the
Everything.
government has any role in any of that.
I agree with that.
Well, then why are you okay? Well, Republicans are the only ones passing legislation trying to stop people from identifying how they want to identify and marrying who they want to marry. That's
I
your
agree
party.
with that.
So,
But
so
I
the
don't like
guys
that about
this Donald Trump guy that you love, when you say I don't like this woke shit, what's the woke shit you don't like?
All right, so this is what it is for me, right? So I am very liberal when it comes to social things. I don't think anybody should. I don't think there should be any reason why anybody can't get married, or there should be anything hindered on anybody based on race, religion, sexual orientation, or anything of the sort, right? And with me having that view, if I don't happen to know the word of the day, because you guys change the words around so much,
You're talking
if I
about
don't know the
pronouns?
word of the day, then I become an ignorant,
Are you talking about pronouns?
racist, and all these crazy
Drew,
things.
Drew, are you talking about pronouns? Is that what when you say word of the day?
Yeah,
Is that what you mean? Pronouns?
and everything
Okay,
else.
Drew. Let me give you a pro tip. Something you may not know. If you're unsure of somebody's gender, use they them pronouns, just like you were taught in school. When hopefully you were taught that pronouns exist. You use they them, and hold on. Stay with me. This is not that complicated. And if somebody tells you their pronouns, do your best to use the pronouns that they gave you. And if you mess it up multiple times, that's okay. The only time, Drew, that liberals ever really have much to say about this is when it's targeted, when people purposely misgender people. Nobody is getting in trouble for accidentally misgendering somebody. There's no law for that. There's no law being advocated for that. It's all about allowing uh, your gender to be included in charges for harassment, just like your religion is right now, Drew. If you are religious, but just like your sexuality right now is protected, trans people just also believe that they should not be targets for harassment based on their gender. That's what liberals are fighting for, and Republicans are lying to you, saying like, "Oh, if you accidentally misgender somebody, you're going to be hauled off to jail." That's not true.
No, I don't think that. I just think that you.
Well,
I
then
get
why
pissed
ban it in
because I don't
schools?
happen to
Then
know
why
the,
ban
I
it in
don't happen
schools,
to know
Drew?
the term of the day. I said homeless one day, and I got berated by people in the boxes because I didn't say houseless.
Drew,
I don't think homeless people give a
It's
shit if you call them.
unhoused.
I don't think they give a fuck. I honestly
Drew,
don't think they care. If you
Drew,
went up to a homeless
how old are
person,
your parents?
are you homeless or
How old are
houseless?
your parents? How old are your
They're
parents?
old. My dad's gone, and my mom's 85.
Okay, there's a lot of things your parents used to say that are no
Yeah, my
longer
mom still
acceptable,
to this
correct?
day calls black
Okay.
people colored, thinking
Yeah.
thinking that she's being politically correct, but she's a product of the 50s.
Okay, so Drew, do you think it would be, let's just say that your mom knew that saying colored was wrong, right? That they knew that. But then she kept talking to black people using that word and targeting them and harassing them with that word. Do you think that should fall under our normal
That's different.
harassment statutes?
Of course.
Wait, hold on, just stay with me. Okay. That's the only thing that the left has advocated for anywhere where they've tried to put laws on the books. Like in California, they just thought that your gender, no matter your gender, whether no matter how you identify, that your gender cannot be a reason that somebody targets you for harassment. That is sensible.
Right. I'm just saying I
But
feel like
but
people in
wait,
my boat.
but Drew,
You're right.
your
No, you're right.
side
I'm agreeing
is
with you.
banning it.
I'll agree with you.
But your side's banning it.
It's
Your
not my
side is
side.
saying you cannot say that you are a different gender. Your side is banning it. That's
don't-
not libertarian. That is
belong to
big
that. I don't
government
belong to that.
Christo-fascism.
I don't belong. I don't belong to that.
Then you can't vote for. Then you can't keep voting for Trump and have people take you
I voted for Trump
at
once.
your
I
word.
didn't vote the second time, and I may not vote this time
All right.
because I don't like either one of them.
Well, then what's the woke stuff you don't like? It seems like you agree with the whole.
No,
woke
this is what it
movement
is.
so far.
No. It's not that I don't. It's not the underlying reason. It's. What's the best? Let me just try to get the best words to explain this. So, in my heart of hearts, I know that I don't have any hate towards anybody or anything, and I really do believe that anybody could have. I have that belief. So, if I feel like liberals try to take the moral high ground by changing all these words around and changing all this current
What
up
they're
to
not?
date.
Can you rephrase that? Because nobody's changing anything.
No, it is being changed. Come on.
What's being changed?
No, Drew, let me just
I
try to
lived
explain
through
something.
4 different
Drew,
ways
it's just about
associate
Drew.
black people.
Drew,
4 different.
you as a
It's like
man, however you identify, you want to self-actualize. You want people to recognize who you see yourself as, right? And affirm that and be able to see, hey, I recognize who you are projecting that you are. I affirm you in that belief. That is all the LGBTQ want. That's all the trans community wants, is to be affirmed by other people like you are every day in the fact that you're, a man. That's
Right.
and that's and I know and I get what you're saying, Drew, because I I actually I am actually more deathly afraid of just getting it wrong and hurting someone's feelings because I don't want to do that. But I understand what you're saying, like the fear socially of like all these words are changing and like I'm getting it wrong and I feel like I'm being demonized like online for that. I hear what you're saying, Drew, but I want you to recognize that the left, while you may feel it's to like have these gotcha moments and be like, see, you guys are doing it wrong. We are just listening to a small group of people, the trans community, that are saying, hey, this is who I am. Please call me this way. Please affirm my existence in this way. And that's all I can do. Just as someone who was bisexual, pansexual, like grew up that way and with very religious, very Republican parents who would not acknowledge my sexuality or who I was, I know how important it is to just be able to say, hey, this is who I am. Will you acknowledge to me that you hear me and that you see me and you can affirm that? Like, it's so powerful. You just don't realize it because you're used to having it every day. But all the left wants is everybody to have that feeling, to be
I'm just
affirmed
going off my
in who
personal
they
experience.
are.
So I'm part of an association, and there happens to be 2 transgender people in there, right? And I'm friends with them, okay? And I have nice small talk with them always. And if I ever misrepresented or said something wrong to them, they wouldn't get mad at me because they know where my heart is at, right? So, and I think that goes for most people. That the most people, just because they don't know the term of the day on a one-on-one basis, aren't going to get ridiculed or pigeonholed as being a bigot or anything else because they happen to make a mistake like that. But yet, in the grand scheme of things, in the political sense, it's like so important. And then you come up on here and like you say something wrong, and you're a bigot, you're a misogynist, you're this, you're that, and it's frustrating because I think a lot of people that aren't liberals feel the same way about a lot of these people, but are being you guys are separating us because we aren't up on the woke terminology.
No, Drew. Like you said, you own a business, right?
Yeah,
Do you have employees?
I have 1 employee.
Okay. Let's just say you've got a business, you got 50 employees. When you stand in front of those employees for, let's say, like an annual award show, are you going to have the same conversation that you're going to have with your drunk Republican friends at the bar?
No,
No, because it's a different platform, right? And
right.
politically speaking, like for us, when you talk about people on the left and like we're careful about language, I think one of the things that was difficult for me to understand when I stopped being a conservative and came over to the left, because I still get the terminology wrong, is that the reason people are correcting is that you never know who's listening, right? And some people are more sensitive to certain things than others. And that just has to do with life experience. Like if somebody in my family had recently passed away of, let's say, like a particular type of
You can
cancer,
use
and somebody,
it's like me, Drew. I have PTSD. So like I have different reactions to things people say than Jay does. And it's interesting seeing our reactions just because of our different lived experience, like things affect me much differently than they affect him. And we like have to navigate that. Yeah. So it's just you don't know what people's past, what triggers people have, what trauma, like that type of thing.
But you don't
and,
think that's
and
separating when you
wait, hold on.
probably all
Can I
could
finish
agree?
that point
Go
real
ahead,
quick?
finish.
Could I just finish that
I'm
point
sorry.
quick? And no, you're good. I promised you I'll give you time to respond. But like for you and I, and I'm please just take this with a grain of salt, however you want to take it. But I mean this sincerely because it's something that's difficult to deal with. But like as white straight men in America, that doesn't mean our life is easy and we don't have challenges. But we certainly face very different challenges than, let's say, a woman, let's say a trans person, let's say a person of color. Like our experiences are different, so we're not always going to understand that. So the jokes that we make with our conservative friends, when we don't really understand what it's like dealing with those other issues, they don't come off as harsh to our conservative friends. So the first time we tell one of those jokes and we get a strong reaction, we're like, oh, what the fuck's your problem? Like, just be cool. This is just funny because you meant it in a funny way. But people have different reactions to different things, and that, like, it's okay to be sensitive to that. So when you come on a left space, because we are far more diverse on the left than you guys are on the right, we're going to be a little more cautious about the language that we use. It happens to me, Drew, all the fucking time. My mod team is great about this. They'll message me privately and be like, "Hey, just so you know, like that term, like it's been used with this connotation. That could be triggering for people." And instead of being upset about that, you just say, "Yeah, okay, my bad. Yeah, I'll try not to use that anymore."
Wait, can I
Right?
give
Like,
you a
it's just
compliment, Jay?
When I
Wait, I
learned a
gotta
new
say one
term,
thing. Wait,
I
let me
learned.
say something about Jay. I think one of the things I've liked about you most is like you are sort of a blueprint for white males. Like the way most people, like if you say, "Oh, what you said is offensive," it's racist. A lot of white males become immediately defensive, and like the answer to someone accusing you of racism is not to scream, "I'm not a racist," right? Like the way you are not defensive and just say like, "Hey, I'm,
My
deconstructed.
actions
I've
speak for
learned.
myself on
Like
whether or not.
if I in any way offended anyone, I'm sorry." Like that's the answer. Is not defensive. Just say, "Hey, I'm learning, and I apologize if I've offended anyone."
But guess what? Guess who gives me the most shit? White male
People.
liberals. That's who gives me the most shit. That's because they feel like they have to overdo it, like for
no, no,
whatever
no.
reason.
Let me tell you why it is, Drew. As the white male liberal that gives you the most shit, it's because I remember like what it was like when I was saying those things, and I remember like what it was like when I finally realized the impact that those words could have on certain people. Once you know what the impact is, you're going to be anything on any topic, Drew. Once you're aware of the impact that it has, any regular person is going to stop talking like that. So when you're
I
criticized by
do. I'm not saying that I
like
don't. I
white
just.
liberals, white male liberals, it's because
You guys just gotta slow it down.
we recognize a version of us that like is almost repulsive to us now, right? We're like, oh my god, it's like it's cringy to us. So that's why, like, we actually are feeling a different emotion. The person who might have been most affected by it, they're feeling a completely different emotion. The emotion I'm feeling is cringe. So I'm going to say something because it's not necessarily emotionally triggering for me. It's not like there's no danger for me to bring it up, but it's cringy enough
Exactly.
that I'm like, dude, that's weird. Again, it just boils down to experience. Our reactions are based on our experience. That's why it's
Okay,
usually liberal white men that are going to come after you because
Well,
you're one
it's
of
the
us,
theory
dog.
of go get your people, right? Like women, we're tired. Like we can't always fight misogyny because we're victims of it. We're fearful. We've been victims of violence at the hands of men. So yeah, white males should go. We call it in like anti-racist education, like go get your people. Like when white males who are allies can see racism, they do need to call it out. They need to go get other white males and say this is what's
I'm not talking
acceptable.
about
This
racism.
is
I'm talking
what's
about
not.
just the
Well,
wording.
or whatever. No, it's yes, it's ubiquitous throughout is what I'm saying. Like it can be about the trans community, it could
So
be
I was
about
never. I was
misogyny, it could be
never.
about
I was.
anti-racism. It's go get your people. Like it's Jay's job to go tell white males like what's acceptable in spaces and what's not.
All right. So I have 1%. Oh fuck! Hold on.
That's all right. I'll
All right.
give you last.
Before
I
I
got to
die.
get to Miss
Before I
Julie
die.
anyway, so I'll give you the last word.
Before I die, real quick. So, if you aren't a woke liberal, what do you think the percentage of people outside of woke liberals are racist, misogynist, transphobic, homophobic? Do you think it's the number that you guys perceive it to be? Like everybody
I,
else that doesn't
yeah,
know these words and doesn't
yeah,
subscribe to wokeness.
yeah. I think the
It,
number's really, really high.
see that's where I think you're wrong, and
Well,
that's
Drew,
what
here's
frustrates me.
Drew. The thing is like you have to learn to recognize like when it's internal, when you don't even know your reactions. The as a former Republican who had these conversations all the time, what I in my heart of hearts, I was like, I'm not hateful. I don't really want bad things to happen. So therefore, I'm not racist, right? But that's not true. Just you can do and say racist things, without hating that race. Hate and racism are not the same thing.
All right, get a little further with that. What's
Yeah,
what's the
so
difference
yeah,
between
so for
race and-
example, like even just the most simple thing of recognizing your privilege of being a white man in this country, what that means, just even on its most basic level, it means that you are far less likely to get pulled over and harassed by police.
100%.
Now, a lot
I've
of
seen that.
people, yeah, a lot of people are afraid to say like white privilege because they think that they're admitting to something. It's nothing that I did. I didn't create white privilege. I didn't create this unbalanced system. So I'm one of two things. I'm either somebody who's going to uphold that system, or I'm somebody that's going to recognize that the system itself is unjust, even though it unjustly favors me. And I don't view that as a criticism of me. I just say the system itself needs to be just for everybody. You and I agree with that. That's white privilege, though. We, no matter what, no matter how you were raised, no matter how much money you have, there is a certain amount of privilege that comes when you are white and male. And there's this thing on with conservatives that they're so afraid to admit that one, our country was built on white supremacy. Two, that it still operates on in with organizations that are functionally white supremacists, and that admitting that does not mean that you hate black people or brown people. All it means is that you recognize that we have a systemic problem that disproportionately goes after certain people.
I got
That's
to this
okay to
point
admit. And
quite a bit.
conservatives, that's woke, dude. That's what wokeism is looking at systems and recognizing, is there a problem in this system? And if so, yes, let's fix it. No matter if you are the direct victim of that system, or if you are, like we are most of the time as white men, like not directly victims, but often directly responsible for the upholding the system. It's just our job to break down the shit that our ancestors did bad, the rules, the regulations, the traditions that they put in place that were fucking racist. We don't have to spend all our time saying how much we hate them. We just have to fix what they did. That's our job.
I've seen firsthand. I've gotten pulled over with a black friend in the car, and he was scared shitless. And I jokingly turned to him and said, "Don't worry, I'm white." So I'm quite aware of that. You know what I mean? I am. No, no,
That's
no, no,
woke.
no, no, no. It was a joke. It was a joke, but it was, but what made it funny was that it was real. Like I understood like that he was worried because he had a legitimate reason to be worried, and I wasn't worried because of the fact that I have privilege. So maybe I said it wrong because Felicia got a little nervous there, but that was the joke. It was a joke between friends, and but it just showed that I understood why he was worried and why I wasn't worried, and I made fun of it.
Well, I got to get to Miss Julie, but let's end it on this.
let me
I
finish.
appreciate. Oh, that wasn't it. Sorry.
No, that wasn't it.
All right.
Stop it.
Sorry. Stop it.
So my
So much
point is,
privilege.
if we have conversations like this more often, as opposed to automatically pigeonholing people because they don't know the right words or they're kind of stuck in things. Look, I grew up, and I'll end it with this. All right, I know you gotta go. I grew up mostly in the 80s. I was born in the 70s, but I mostly grew up in the 80s. I had, you know, Michael Jordan on the wall, Michael Jackson in my boombox. I was watching the Cosby Show, and I know this sounds crazy, but what I'm saying is I felt like the racism that we're talking about today and how everybody became racist, it didn't feel that way then. It just didn't. And maybe it was because I was young. Maybe it was because I just didn't know, life as much.
It's not being directed at you, but it's always been happening, Drew. And I promise you, it's getting better for minorities, not worse. Like it's going on. It's just not affecting you, and that's why they call it woke. Because once you can see it, once you can identify the inherent white supremacy and patriarchy in our systems, you can't unsee it. That's why the original term woke came in the 30s. For it was African Americans saying, like, once you can see what's going on in this country, it started with the 3/5 compromise. An African American was male was worth 3/5 of what a white male was. Like that. I mean, that's the reality of what our country was built on, and it's been perpetuated.
Just the whole idea that black people. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine that's very conservative the other day. How through one of these lives, I got the insight that, like, I never thought of it this way, that black people don't have a culture to fall back on beyond slavery. You know what I mean? Like their uh, past is just that. Like we all have. You know, you came from Italy, you came from this, you came from that. There's like, you know, it's very different. Like they had to, you know, it's a very different thing. And I'm not articulating it well, but
Yeah, let me try and help there, because I think I was in the live you're talking about. You're saying that like for a lot of people who are descendants of slaves, they're for a long and now it's a little different because we have like DNA testing, but for a long time it was incredibly difficult to figure out your country of origin. I think that's kind of what you're talking about. So like they didn't grow up with the culture of necessarily where they came from,
right.
and they created their.
I wish
think
I
that's
could
what you're
remember
trying
his
to say.
name, but there's a historical researcher on TikTok whose job, I mean, he pieces together, finds African Americans, families, and lineage, and pieces it together through slave records. And it's some of the most violent, horrific records and work that this man does in order to find the ancestors of slaves and link families together. I mean, and he goes through like periods of depression, like doing this work. Like, yeah, their history,
Yeah,
their
it's a
culture,
difficult, and
everything
it's
has been
something that
erased. Yes.
as a white male, I never even acknowledged because it just didn't affect me in any way, and I never thought to think of it like that. So yeah, of course, there's a certain amount of wokeness that you'll have, but what I'm saying is, instead of just assuming that if people aren't saying the right words, that they in their heart of hearts they're either a racist or a misogynist or you know, a bigot in any way. I think that's separating and putting yourself on a pedestal because you know all the woke terminology. I don't think it's beneficial to correct the problem. I think if you know, if you have conversations like
Well,
this,
with all due respect, it is correcting the problem. It's just doing it slowly, right? Like, we are far less, at least outwardly, in our rhetoric, we are far less racist than we were maybe 30 or 40 years ago. Just, you know what I mean? Like, 30 or 40 years ago, it wasn't that weird. Like, it wasn't that uncommon for publicly for like a white person to use the N word. Now, if you get caught saying the N word in public, it's a real problem. Like this progress is has been way too slow. But what you're asking for is like you're like, hey, we again, this is white privilege. You're like, well, all these people would recognize their privilege a lot quicker if you'd stop pointing it out.
no, that's not what I'm saying at all. Instead
It
of
is. It is because again, you inherent racism, systemic racism exists whether you openly hate people or not. And you keep associating this fear that you have of being called racist with like hatred, and you're like, well, we don't hate, they're just they don't know. It does Systemic racism does not mean hatred, right? It doesn't mean that if you are involved in a systemic oppressive model that you yourself actively hate people, right? It's
right,
this problem where you have very fragile conservatives afraid that people will point out the racism. And again, there's two ways to approach it. You can say, "My bad, I didn't understand that context. I'll try and be better." And everybody's cool with that response. Nobody's mad at that response. But the response that gets people in trouble is when they say, "I'm not racist, you're dividing." They take that little bit of criticism, and there's the white fragility we're talking about. You're just pointing out a little bit of criticism, and they lose their mind about being called a word. Like, you guys are the soft ones, dude. The people responding that way, those are the soft ones.
And
well,
no, like in
so,
anti-racist education, Drew, it's supposed to be uncomfortable. Like you're being challenged. Like you're saying, you're realizing you're seeing things from a perspective you've never seen before. Like
right,
it's uncomfortable. I'm on my. It's called deconstruction, right? Like deconstructing the inherent racism. Me, like, right, my father is half black, half Native American, but I'm still white passing. Like it is my experience. You know, I have inherent racism in me. I have to unpack. I am responsible to deconstruct my bias. I'm on that journey just like you're on that journey. And it is uncomfortable, right? Like if you're uncomfortable, if you're like, what's going on, it's working. You know what I mean? Like that
I
is the
get that,
point. We
but
are all
I
in
think it gets
different
weaponized
stages
for
of
political
discomfort.
reasons.
That is part of the process.
I think it gets weaponized for political reasons.
You
Yeah,
follow
and I
me?
think it's mostly by your side. But I got to get to the
Drew,
next
people
guest.
are suffering. Think of the people taking that are actually being discriminated against.
No,
Take
no,
yourself
I'm
out of it. You're not one of those people. You're uncomfortable,
You're
Drew,
not
but
getting that.
people are in the trenches
Drew.
So
taking grenades.
you're not getting my point.
You're
You are getting my
uncomfortable.
point.
Drew,
You're not
trying
willing
to
to
make
concede to it.
Drew, you're trying to position yourself in the in the victim's role here because you feel like it's weaponized. You know what? You know who it's not weaponized against? People who don't do it. People who don't uphold those values. People who are honest about what our systems look like. I do not feel like it is ever weaponized against me. In fact, it only feels like weaponization to those who cannot handle constructive criticism, to people who are so fragile with their own egos that even the
So I
idea
seem
of
like that type of person,
recognizing
or I seem
internal
pretty
racism
reasonable?
in themselves is a terrifying thought. And so they react emotionally and they feel like they're targeted and they feel like they're the victims because somebody is just pointing out something about them. It's that MAGA perpetual victim complex. I got to get to the next guest, though, Drew.
All right.
All right, dude. We'll see you. All right, we're gonna wrap things up in the only way I know how. Everybody's favorite, Miss Julie.
Well, hi, Jay. Hi, Felice.
Hi, Miss Julie.
Hi.
Hi, I've missed you both.
We've missed you. Where have you been?
Well, I'm laid up with a bit of a sports injury, if you can
Oh,
fathom
no.
that. Yeah, well, it goes back to last week. I was so excited for the eclipse. So I took my lawn chair and a drink and my earbuds and all my little supplies, and I marched all the way across the parking lot into the clearings with some grass and surrounded by trees, high as a kite, and just wanted to enjoy the beauty of nature. And let me tell you, where were the raptors? Why didn't the raptors come? I was ready. I never saw them.
I get it. The rapture.
Oh, I
see it?
thought it was the raptors.
Yeah. I don't know that it's not both. It could be both.
Maybe that's
The
how
velociraptors.
Well, yeah, the rapture raptures you by the raptors taking you, and then they fly. Okay, all
think
right,
that's
now I
correct.
know better. Now I know better. That helps.
Well,
So,
how'd you get injured?
well, I sat outside for about an hour enjoying as it got darker and it got cooler and it was feeling kind of mysterious, and then I realized I had to pee. That seems to be where all my problems come from.
There's a common theme. There's a common theme.
Yeah, so I thought, well, I should probably get up and get my shit together and head on back inside so I can find the toilet. So
Sure.
got up and straightened out my jean shorts and my t-shirt and grabbed my chair and started heading back in. And I hadn't gotten very far across the parking lot at all, and it started raining. I thought, well, geez, oh, Pete, that's the last thing you want. You gotta pee, and then you're hearing running water.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's the
it
worst.
wasn't good. So I was just hustling along. It was like the Senior Olympics. I was just speed waddling for my life, trying not to pee on myself. So I got going faster and faster. And if you can imagine my big thighs in some short jean shorts, it was like 200-pound Smithfield hams rubbing together. You could practically smell the bacon frying. I mean, the pigs were squealing, they were rubbing so much. It was horrifying. So I'm shuffling along, knees together, shorts riding higher and higher between my thighs, because that's what happens when you're fat. The friction forces them up. Man, I looked like I was wearing a string bikini by the time I shuffled off to the building. I mean, these weren't jean shorts. These were some real shitter splitters. I didn't know what to make of them. I mean, what was left of the jeans barely covered my beans. It wasn't right. There was nothing left but chaps for my flaps. I was appalled. So I made it inside the building, and I made it to the elevator. Then I waited and I waited, and by now I'm bouncing up and down. I'm kind of shimmering and shaking off a little water. I'm bouncing. I'm going to hold that key till I get home. So I take the elevator up to the 9th floor. Seemed to take forever. Then it was a long way down the hall. So I slowed my breathing. I controlled my pace. I tried to pick that floss out of my ass that used to be my jeans. It was pretty bad. So I get down to my apartment and drop the keys. And when I bent over, I had a bit of a shark, but still hadn't peed on myself yet, so I was safe. I was safe. So I got inside and I thought, I made it. I made it. So I went to put my keys on the hanger by the door because, I'm an old lady. I'm set in my ways. You do
Sure.
things a certain way. And I started to head to the bathroom, but I still had my hat on, so I had to turn back around and hang that up on the hook. Headed back to the bathroom. No, but my sunglasses were still on. I had to turn back. I was doing the new puppy polka on that carpet, just prancing and dancing around, spinning in circles. And I fooled around too long, Jay. My
Oh
bladder
no.
just emptied itself on the carpet. But my sports injury from my
That's
senior
not the
waddle
injury. Oh
Olympics,
no.
Jay, my thighs are beyond chafed.
Yeah,
I think
sounds
I've
like it.
developed a severe level of burn that I've now covered with Crisco and plastic wrap, and I'm sitting back
You
in my
should.
recliner. I got one knee hanging off each arm of the chair. I feel like I'm in the stirrups at the OB-GYN. It's not even right.
It's not right, Miss
It's
Julie.
not right.
It's not
So
right.
I'm just sitting here trying to hang on and just, restore a little dignity, which is going to be a while in coming. But
Well, I'll see if I can round up some Crisco, get it sent your way. You don't want to run out of that. You got to keep that thing nice and oiled up so that the infection doesn't get in. I think that's how it works.
yeah, I'm not sure what I'm trying to save and serve and protect, but I almost said something real bad. I better go before I get booted.
Miss Julia, I love you. Let us
Miss
know if there's
you.
anything we can do to help with the burn.
I will. Thank you so much for the gifts, everybody. It was good to talk to you. Love you, Jay. Love you, Felice. Bye.
Love you,
Love
Miss
you, Aunt
Julie. Bye.
Julie. She's hilarious. You
All
should do
right.
stand up. That story hits a little too close to home. I think all women understand like jean short. Yeah.
I don't understand. Listen, sorry about that. Sorry for all of you who have dealt with that.
Yeah, men don't
Uh,
wear short enough shorts to understand that.
I keep them pretty short, to be honest. But not, I guess, not short
I
enough.
do love guys showing a little thigh, like thigh
Oh, I show
5 inch.
all the thigh. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm all about that. Men should wear short shorts. Men's thighs are attractive. Like, show them off.
There you go, man. Shoot your
Yeah.
shot. Okay. Well, we'll finish. I guess we can finish
We'll
the
finish
madhouse
saving
up
Drew
tomorrow.
another day. Thank you,
Drew.
Drew, for coming to your own intervention. We're day by day. We got this.
9:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're here every day, Monday through Friday. We will be here again tomorrow, and we look forward to seeing you then. Anything from you, Felice?
No, that was a good show. I think we did a great job.